And welcome back to ScavTalk, everyone. Today's episode, we're going to be going over the insane buffs made to the VSS Val, along with a 15% overall recoil adjustment to all the guns. And then we're going to talk about the event, some other minor changes, and just our general gamer pondering. So, Giga, how's it been, man? What you been into?
Been all right. It's been all right. I might talk about it a bit later, but I have to do. So I was like, what I've been up to recently is trying to me, and this is the way I've always described it to chat as well. I'm not dead set on completing it. It's fine. I want to meander my way to Lightkeeper. I don't know whether we're even going to reach him, but I've never done his quest before. We've not really looked at it, so I'm like, okay, we'll complete the sort of the cross section of things that you need to do so that you can get at least onto his quest line, and then just like see what it is. I'll probably get bored trying to find COFDM radios for the very, very first one. But even still, it's something, not done it before. And I just kind of wanted to, right, because I'm not doing Kappa, it's like, okay, let's complete this particular subset of quests that we need to get there. So I've got like right up to the end. I have literally one quest to complete before I can go and start the Lightkeeper quest line. And it's Tarkov Shooter Part 7, a quest that never ever causes me any problems whatsoever. Obviously, given it's the only quest that I have left to do, I'm finding it incredibly difficult. Church, I spent 2 full streams on Tarkov Shooter Part 7, and I did not kill a single PMC from over 45 meters away. It was excruciating. It was like, you go to take the shot, and the guy moves at the last minute, just like playing badly. Like, it was just, honestly, it was an actual travesty. I'm not the best sniper at the best of times, but like, normally it's never this bad. Oh my God, it's really bad. Like, I got 2 out of 5. Just sort of incidentally. I don't even really remember how I got that. And can I get 3 more? Like, absolutely not. I managed to snag, like, after the terrible streams, I had to finish a daily on interchange. And I was like, well, I may as well. I did 2 out of 4 on stream, so I'll just do the rest like offline. And I just ran in, like, went up one of the towers with a VPO and got one of the others, like, off stream against some random unsuspecting dude over by the, I was up the, you got the big road on interchange, and I was up the tower near that, and he was out by the sort of scav area, and he's like running towards the ambulance and one of those like truck things, and he just had no idea, and I was just like patoo with APM from literally from Jupiter this time for once at least, and he had no idea, and I was like, oh okay, well, we did actually manage to randomly do one when I take like the crappiest gun and have the worst loadout of all time, and I'm just trying to get not a run through and leave out of like no backpack extract or something. I was like, oh, of course. So I have 2 more to do. Honestly, it's so bad.
Now, for the viewers and listeners, if you wouldn't mind reminding us of the details. I mean, me as a Tarkov veteran, I know the details of that quest like the back of my hand. But for the audience, of course, could you just like remind them of the details, of that quest?
Tarkov Shooter Part 7.
Yeah, what is the
Tarkov Shooter Part 7 isn't even the notorious one. Like loads, because I ambiguously called the stream Tarkov Shooter. So people are like, oh, you're doing Tarkov Shooter 8 where you have to kill 3 PMCs on wood. I didn't think that you could do this on other maps. I thought it had to be woods. I'm like, I'm not doing Tarkov Shooter 8. I don't have to kill 3 PMCs in one life with it actually just in one raid on woods. I'm doing the one before that, Tarkov Shooter Part 7. You literally just have to kill 5 players from over 45 meters away with a suppressor on a Volti.
Okay.
All you have to do over any raids on any map, however you like. Honestly, it was really, really painful. Yeah. Seriously, it was so painful. It's actually some of the most painful Tarkov that I've had since that slump I had. Maybe I even never remember when that was, like 8 months ago or something. Remember, I had this period of 2 weeks where I just literally couldn't survive.
Briefly, yeah, I think I vaguely remember that. Mm-hmm.
I'm still extracting, but like I either just get myself into some stupid situation. I think I've killed 3 people under 45 meters. One of them was at 42, which is I really thought that was 45, and it wasn't. I was like, man, I don't know whether it does it direct line of sight, whether it does it, X, Y, and ignores the height, because I was on shoreline and I was shooting down at a gas station, and it took me like 5 shots to kill this stupid guy. And he was running along the beach, and by the time he got there, he ran the last 3 meters or something, and it was within the 45 and didn't count. Another one was like the absolutely crack shot, which is amazing. It was on woods, and it was over by Scav House kind of area. There's the big sort of sniping rock, not the one that's like right next to it, like the stupid one that's like right next to the Scav House. It's the other one that's like all the way the other end of the big open field. It's like the road comes all the way up, and there's the big rock there. I was running from there across to like my special spot, basically towards the camp. And there was a guy, and I just turned around and just go, and just take him out in one shot with the M700. I was like, yeah, this is great. But again, it was like 25 meters or something, so it didn't count. So yeah, I can kill people close up, but it's just like trying to get that thing of like, and I'm too aggressive, and I don't play bolties enough, and it's 80% of it is my own fault, and 20% of it is a bit of bad luck. It's just just the way it goes sometimes. Just the way it goes. What have you been up to? What have you been playing? You have still been playing Cycle?
Still playing the Cycle. I think I've finally hit the point where I'm like, I'm like, what, 3 weeks in the Cycle Frontier, with the latest season, and I'm just sort of assessing, how I feel about the game, because it's my whole like, reason of playing it in some ways is just to, I don't know, see how it fares up against, the Tarkov, and then like, why is the game not as popular as Tarkov? I mean, it's not, it doesn't have numbers presumably like Tarkov, but it also doesn't have numbers like most other games. A lot of these online games, there's so many actual dead online games where they have like concurrent player count of like 12 people. It's really sad, unfortunately, because there's a lot of cool ones. Someone was telling me about one the other day. But anyways, so I don't know, the new map that they unlocked the in-game map Wednesday of this week.
Okay.
And it's actually really cool, like aesthetically. I think you would really like it. There's like it's essentially a mountain, an island, and there's a mountain in the center, and there's like cliffs and descents, and if you fall down, you just like die in the abyss. But if you go into the mountain, into the cave system, then you like eventually make your way to like this alien structure that's been like mined into, and then you go inside, and it's all these like alien looking structures and tentacles and wires.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the big thing about it is there's a forge at the very bottom where you put items in and you put loot in, and it upgrades those items and gives them like perks, like faster healing. You get but it's like,
and this is in raid, right? This is in the raid.
In the raid, yeah. It sounds really cool, but it's such a insanely risky thing to do because the map is like, obviously there's just there's like the hardest AIs are on there. The map is incredibly dark, like you have to bring a flashlight. People just like constantly rat you out, dude. It's like it's honestly worse than interchange because there's like actual like pitch black almost in certain parts. It's so I don't know, it's and the game itself, maybe I'll talk about it later, but it's kind of like, I feel like it's in a weird spot with like it feels like progression kind of is kind of meaningless because like it. Anyways, maybe we'll talk about it later. But
okay,
I'm essentially looking at it like, this might be my point of exiting because I'm kind of feeling like I'm not having as much fun as I was previously.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I guess you do get to that stage with a lot of these if you're not, just wedded to it, and the cycle. Well, no pun intended. The actual like game loop cycle's not engaging you anymore, or whatever. Yeah,
right.
That makes sense. So Tarkov Land. I guess we'll go through the updates that VSG have been making first because it's the easy thing. So they've done some crafting, trading adjustments, and attachment prices. The crafting stuff is probably the most impactful, I would say. I've actually got the list up in front of me here. So yeah, crafting and trading is probably the most important thing. So, and to their credit, they've gone and they've put all the stuff out on the wiki. And I think there was actually a post from Logical being like, yep, it's all there. There's nothing secret. Like everything they did is just right there, which is cool. And it looks nice. They've done it in a nice style again. So fair enough. Props to them. And so I guess we'll just go through each one. Like the first one is 762 BP. Yeah, the notorious 762 BP. It's been adjusted very slightly by making it a little bit more expensive by requiring 120 rounds of PS. That almost feels more like, rather than a balancing change, it almost just feels more like this doesn't really make sense to not have a bullet like casing to put it in. It almost feels like some sort of weird realism thing that they've gone for, like, most of them require some kind of like round, but that one's missing. So we'll put PS in there, just whatever. Like PS is so cheap, it doesn't really make any difference. Then we've got one that actually is kind of interesting. And this is interesting because of the changes that we'll talk about in a minute with the VSS and the Val. And this is for 9x39 BP. So this is the best ammo. Is it the best? It is the best, right? There's not some stupid demand after it, is there?
In terms of pin, yeah, it's the best. The highest pin you can get, I believe.
Yeah. I was pretty sure that was the case. Because like some of these things I often forget. It's like, with 762x39, for example, it's just like MAIAP is just like, I haven't even seen it this wipe. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just meaningless. I always forget if there's like another one above it sometimes. Anyway, BP is the highest pen that you can get. It's 60 damage and 55 pen, which makes it like a turbo nuts round, right? Like it's insane. It's like a baby BT. It's like 762 by 54R BT.
Right.
Yeah, it does a lot more damage. That's 78 damage and 55 pen, but it's the same pen, right? 78 pen. Thinking about breakpoints and things, 78 pen versus 60 pen.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, most of the time are the same. Because 78 pen won't one-shot the thorax, neither will 60, but 60 will two-shot the thorax, as will 78. So it's kind of like, does it pen or doesn't it pen? And because they both have the same pen, they kind of have the same time to kill, even through class 6.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so BP's like the super turbo round. So that one was like 2 military power filters and 2 gunpowders to make BP. They've changed this by adding 200 rounds of SP6, which is, that's not an insignificant cost. Like you can craft the SP6 really cheaply or buy it expensively from Prapor. But now it makes 200 PAB9. It doesn't make BP anymore. It makes PAB9.
Yeah, which it also requires a screwdriver and set of files master tools.
The auxiliary items.
Yeah, the auxiliary items. But what I really wanted to say was the PAB 9 has always been kind of a weird round for me because I never really understood what it's there for. Like it almost feels like this. If I recall correctly, does it have an accuracy bonus?
It actually has an accuracy nerf.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know because it sits kind of like in between SP6 and SPP, if I'm not mistaken.
It's actually slightly better than SP6. It sits between SP6 and BP.
Okay. Got it.
For pen, at least. That's usually the point. It sits between them for damage, but it sits above it for pen. So because SP6 is 58 damage and 46 pen. PAB 9 is 62 damage and 48 pen, so it's 4 more damage and 2 more pen. And then BP is a little bit less pen with a little bit less damage with 60 damage, but 55 pen instead. So PAB9 is more damaging than both. The most important thing about it, though, which is kind of interesting, is it actually has the highest, I guess it's not important, but it has the highest armor damage out of all of the bullets within 9x39, which is important because that means that it's not as much of a step down from BP as it looks, especially if you're going up against chunky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not having 55 pen, though, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter what the armor damage is on BP because it just kills you. So
right, yeah, sure. Does it have a recoil modifier on it?
It does. They're basically all plus 10. So you could argue it's better in some ways. Like SP6 is plus 10, SPP is plus 10, PAB9 is plus 10, and BP is plus 22.
Right, yeah. I know that one's the most.
Yeah, it's just a bit less. And SP5 is minus 5, so you actually get a little buff.
Yeah, but
SP5 really is bad now.
Nowadays, maybe in the old days, but nowadays it's pretty rough.
Because they literally took 10 pen off it, right? Back, it was 6 months ago or whatever. And now it's at 28 pence. It's like M855 now. It's just like, nah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. So you can't make the BP. You can still barter for BP with Prapor 4, but you have to complete Grenadier. I just did a thing about it because, I think it's cigarettes and something else.
Okay.
And you can barter for BP. So it's still accessible. You can still get it. It's not now become, it's not like a unicorn round. Because if they took the barter away, then it would become, right? There's no other way to get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Is it worth doing? Probably not. If you need SP6 for the craft and then it's all these other things, I just don't think it makes sense anymore.
To do
the PAB9 craft, right?
Yeah.
You're gaining 4 damage and 2 pen and a bit of armor damage,
right?
For 9 hours of freaking crafting and 2 military power filters and 2 cork gunpowders. Like it's way too much for that incremental.
I think so.
You may as well just craft your 300 SP6 and just the rate of fire is so high that it just doesn't make any difference.
I mean, I wonder if this was because this came after the I'm not mistaken, after the Val changes. So I wonder if this is a reaction to that. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, because maybe a ton of people were crafting BP and it was just going to delete everybody because it is an insane bullet. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Making this craft like this makes this craft pointless. So I don't know. It's just kind of like removed it as a place and put it as a placeholder again, which is like, yeah, whatever. But so, what's the next one? So then the white gunpowders, which is the blue gunpowders. All the gunpowders are spiking in price. So this is probably a response to that, I think. Before it was 70 rounds of 545 PS, and now it's 150 rounds of 545 HP. I can't remember what the price difference is on that.
Can you can you buy it from Jaeger? I don't think you can buy it from
I'd have to
Prepper,
look
or
it up.
can you?
I don't know. What 545 HP?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Let's have a quick look. I didn't actually look this one up. It's Jaeger 1.
Okay, so you would need to do Jaeger 1 to do the craft, assuming you had Workbench 1 requirements met prior to having Jaeger unlocked.
Yeah, which is like it's no big deal. But the important part about it is that you now get 2 kite gunpowders.
Yeah, that's actually pretty nice.
Because the kites were getting expensive. They were they were cheap craft, but they were just the price was just going up and up and up. Like people are trying to craft ammos, not craft the powders to make the money, right? Because there's other things that are better to make the money, and so so it's one of those funny things with the market, right? It's like here's the money craft and here's the ammo craft. It's like, okay, well, to make this worth and beat out the money craft stuff, kite has to really like go up a lot before it's worth people then switching over to doing it for the money craft. It's kind of interesting. So they've like brought that threshold down a bit by making it have 2 kites as the output, which is
So did this drop the price of kite?
I haven't checked, but it should have. It should have. I'll have a quick look now. Let's see. Kite gunpowder. It definitely should have. It doesn't seem to have that much, actually.
Maybe it needs a little bit of time.
But it should do. It looks like maybe the average has come down a little. It was averaging... Because when did this change come out? This one came out yesterday at about 5. Yeah, okay. So the average... It was averaging the day before at about 34, 32k, something like that. And then after that, it was averaging about 25. So actually, yeah, it is fairly significant.
Okay.
It is fairly significant.
Man, that's crazy. The gunpowder selling for 25. Or was selling for 35 even. That's crazy.
And it's like, and it was so cheap to make, right? It's like, how much does 545 PS cost? It's like nothing.
Yeah.
But again, it's the time. It's like an hour and a half in the workbench, which you could be making something else or whatever. So the next one is 9x21 BT. This is the top round for the shrimp and the SR2M, the new SMG PPP cannon that they added to the game, which is good, but I think is more of a novelty factor weapon at the moment rather than anything else in particular. That one has been made slightly cheaper, I believe. So it was 2 hawk gunpowders, 1 kite and 2 eagles. Now it's just 2 hawks and 2 eagles. So the kite has been gotten rid of. The kite, yeah, as we said, was getting quite expensive. And it's still 3 packs of screws. So yeah, it's just a little bit cheaper. Oh, and that one was actually kind of annoying because you needed the fierce blow sledgehammer. You needed to just like have it in your inventory to do it as an auxiliary item,
right?
Which is kind of annoying. I had to buy because I made some of it. I ended up not really using it, but I made some just on the off chance that I wanted to use the weapon. And I was like, oh, I have to like buy with a sledgehammer off the fleet. It's annoying. I've just got it lying around in a junk box somewhere.
You said you have to buy it off the fleet?
Well, no, I didn't have one because I used it in my. Like I never pick them up. I've only seen them a few times. They're not that common. And there's so many slots that I never get them. So I had to go and buy one off the fleet to use as an auxiliary item to actually craft this one. But they seem to have removed that as a requirement. So now you don't need to use it anymore.
Could you not
get it back, right? But
I thought you couldn't buy sledgehammers. Did they change that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, they changed it quite early. Yeah, they changed it
I don't
quite
remember
early.
that.
Lots of people didn't know. Like there were lots of people.
Oh wait, I do remember that.
Now
I do remember. Okay, that was quite some time ago.
Yeah, lots of people that were coming into the stream, and I was just like, they're like, I just can't find the hammer anywhere. I'm just like, you just go buy one on the flea. They're like, what? You could buy it? And I'm like, yeah, they changed it. So many people are like, no, I've been searching for the stupid thing, but yeah. Anyway, so the next one is 9x39 SPP. The round that no one is using because SP6 is better. It's like it's not in a vacuum. It's not a terrible bullet. 68 damage and 40 pen is not. It's really not a bad bullet, right? Like it's really, really good damage, and the pen is fine. The pen is the same as actually I was going to say newly upgraded BT, but BT is even higher than that now. BT's 42, so it's sort of between between like 5601 and 5501. It's the same pen as FMJ for the MP7. So it's it's a legitimately decent round, and with that level of damage, it's actually pretty good. So they've increased the cost of this by, I think, is it they increased the cost? Oh no, they made it sensible. That's what they've done. Yeah, because it was 50. It was 59 by 21 BTs, which is the best round to give you 200
Right.
SPPs, and SPP was just like,
I mean, it was better than SP5, but it was worse than SP6. So just do the SP6 craft because you need 50 rounds of 9 by 21 BT, which were hard to get only unless you
which is
crafted
exactly because that was the one that we just talked about a second ago for the shrimp.
Right.
So it's like you had to go through some painful craft to get BT, which is like rare in the first place, and then use that to get SPP, and SPP is worse than SP6. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So now it's SP5 and the kite gunpowders, and that makes SPP. It makes a lot more sense. That one's that one makes sense. It's the directly predecessing bullet makes the one afterwards. Fine.
I mean, I'm starting to see a trend here. It also takes 200 rounds of SP5 to get 200 rounds of SPP. I mean,
yeah,
I'm liking the consistency.
Exactly. Then the M80 craft has been made a lot cheaper. Probably necessary, honestly. It was 5 kites, 2 eagles, and 4 screws. That's the kite's the blue, eagles the green, and 4 screws. It's now 2 kite gunpowders, the blue ones, and 1 eagle. So this is like a dramatic cheapness in comparison. I haven't gone to look at exactly what that is. Let me have a look on Tarkov. Tarkov.dev, by the way, is a very good website. It's just been updated yet. It has. It's still, with the gunpowders going up, it's still 3,000 a round. Can you imagine what it was like before?
You can sell them 80 on the flea? I thought they banned
it. No, they're banned now. They're banned.
What's 3,000 a round?
The M80 using the new craft.
Oh, you're saying that's how much you basically pay for. I got you.
Yeah. The implied cost of
right.
of doing the craft, dude. I didn't even look at what this was before. That must have been like nearly 10K a round, as the powder price has been going up.
But I mean, honestly, I'm okay. I mean, I'm glad they changed it. But yeah, I'm okay with M80 being. I just felt like M80 was kind of just like a no-brain choice. Like when it was on the traders, once you hit the requirements to start running it, I just felt like it was a no-brainer to always run it. It's just like a really good, consistent round. Early to mid. That was
definitely true at Peacekeeper 2, for sure. I still think that M62 is fine on Peacekeeper 4, and the M80 would be fine on Peacekeeper 3, personally. I know Peacekeeper 3 is quite early, but M80 is just like non-existent now. I just don't think there's like it's too far in the progression, and by the time you get there, like other stuff's better. It's just like, I don't know. And M62 is already there, and by the time you Peacekeeper 4, money's not an issue anymore. I don't know. I'm not sure about it. And then the craft's too expensive. Like M80's basically been deleted from the game. I can't remember the last time that like people then buy it at Peacekeeper 4, which is fine, and they use it for stacking rounds and stuff. Like I have been killed with it. In fairness, that's not completely true, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. It's a good bullet. It is a good bullet. So yeah, this craft is probably still a bit too expensive, but it's it makes more sense now. Next one, SNB. This used to take 1 gunpowder. This is the Hawk, the red one. That was basically a money craft. It was actually just a money craft. Like they increased the prices. Do you remember when they increased the prices for ammo? So like all of the various ammos.
Oh yeah.
The mechanic was buying them.
You're telling me you could do this craft and just vendor it and make money?
SMB was over 1,000 a round.
That's crazy.
So you got 80 out of this thing, and you got, I think it was like 94K or something. So you put 1 red in and get like 95 grand out. And it's long, right? But you just do it overnight, and that's that. I think SP6, I think now is the only one that still works like that, because you just get so many for SP6. It's still profitable to do that craft with the inputs. But they've halved the amount.
Yeah.
40. So now, like one of the biggest things, it's not even necessarily like the price of the bullet. Like in this case, it matters because it was a money craft, but it's not necessarily even like the economics of it that make it problematic. So like it takes 10 hours. Now you get half the amount of bullets as you did, right? Like it's the throughput of ammo is almost as important as the money, like almost more so actually in some cases.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah.
40 bullets in half a day is such a small number.
Yeah. I mean, you would probably do this craft, I would presume. I mean, there's probably still reasons, but I would assume one of the most common reasons is, hey, I'm going to do some quest related to using this type of caliber, and I want good ammo to help me succeed at the quest. So I'm going to do this craft today in preparation for working on that quest tomorrow.
Mhm.
But now that you effectively get half the amount, 40, whereas you used to get 80, that's now half the amount of attempts you get to do before you have to
Yeah.
use less than ideal ammo. So
Yeah, you have to like really stack it hard over, LPS
right.
or PS or something. That's kind of interesting. And they added 40 rounds of LPS to the craft. So the craft is marginally more expensive, but you need ammo to make ammo now at this point, which fine. So we'll see. I mean, my position on SMB, maybe it's workbench. It's one of the few workbench level 2 crafts. So yeah, fine. You can get it quite early, so it can be worth doing. But once you have the ability to buy BT from Prapor, I don't think anybody should be crafting SMB ever.
Yeah, I'm a
Ever.
big
Unless
BT
it's for money.
believer.
But like BT, as we said a minute ago, like 55 pen, there's not a lot of stuff in the game. Like that just butters straight through class 5.
Yeah.
If you're really worried about class 6, like it still kills people in 3 hits wearing a slick, you know?
Yeah, and there's like a 30% chance, unless they change the numbers, and maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I think there's like a 30% roll you can one tap, or sorry, just straight penetrate through the like a killer helmet if they were wearing a killer helmet, for example.
Like through the visor. Yeah, I think it is to begin with. It should be, yeah, because it's the magic 7, rule of the magic 7 is
Right.
like 57 is the 55% point. So 56 is like 10 less, like 45%, and then 55 is about 9 or 8 less because it gets diminishing as you go down. So
Yeah.
it's like 55 minus 10, 45 minus 8 is about 30.
Yeah, it's
30,
also
30 whatever percent.
weird Tarkov fact for you. If you're hunting Killa and you want to use, you want to get him with a one tap. If you use SMB, it's impossible to one tap him because his head HP is too high. Like, yes, you can pin through his visor or his helmet, but his head HP is too high. But if you use BT, because it has a little bit more damage, and if you get the lucky roll within a certain distance, I think, because the damage fall off or something, BT would do the trick.
Yeah, he has 70 head HP.
Mm.
I wonder if that even will work, honestly, through the class 6. I don't know if there might be too much damage mitigation. I don't know. You might need to hit him on the helmet, the actual helmet. Otherwise, it might not do enough. Even because I think class 6 might mitigate 78 too much.
Actually, yeah, I think you're right. I think you have to do the helmet. Yeah. No, you're right. I'm misremembering that. Yep. You're
But
right.
SMB won't do. Would SMB do it through the? It's got such high pen. There's probably very low. There's probably very, very small amount of mitigation through class 4. So. But yeah, the BT, if you hit them in the helmet, then it's fine, and then it's okay either which way because it's class 4.
Yeah.
But
I think the distance is like under 45 meters or something. Otherwise, if you go too far back,
you wouldn't be able to shoot it too far because it's only 75 to start with. So the damage drop off is like, you're really starting to get into the, it's getting close.
Yeah.
It's getting close. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Then the final one for the crafting, which like is actually a big nerf, is in the same. Well, it sort of is. It's in the same vein. It's M61, which has gone from 80 per cycle to 40. Now, it's not a straight nerf in the same way as SMB is, because they reduced the base crafting time from 16 hours and 40 minutes down to 12 hours and 30 minutes. So in some ways, probably still, in some ways that's better. It kind of depends on how you see it. Like, even though the strict throughput of 16 hours with 80 versus 12 hours with 40 is lower bullets, that assumes that you can get there at the 16-hour mark to restart the craft continuously, right? Whereas the 12-hour and 30 minutes, yes, that's kind of awkward. If you, I don't know, I was like thinking about like the normal person's like day. If you like log off Tarkov at like 11 or whatever, and then you like get up in the morning, you've got like 8 hours or something. If you have got like mid-tier crafting levels, this thing might only be like 8 or 9 hours. So you can potentially snag it again in the morning after you've gone to sleep. Whereas with a 16-hour craft time, it's going to be like 13 hours or 12 hours. So you already have left the house, right? If you've gone to work or something, you actually won't be able to get the second craft in because it takes too long. So it might just actually be timing-wise, might just be better having 12 hours because of how it probably reduces down to 8 or something. by the time you've taken your skills into account. I don't know. It's just like some weird thing I was thinking about in terms of this. Like, there's just how the timing cycle matters. But anyway, so it's half the amount, but a little bit less. It's half the amount, but with a third of the time taken away. So it's,
instead of 6 gunpowders and 3 radiators, it's 3 hot gunpowders, 1 radiator, and then 40 M80 rounds as well.
Yeah, exactly. So 40 M80 rounds. Fun. I think they're only about $4 from once you're at Peacekeeper 4. So that's not the end of the world. Like 400. How much does that cost you? 400, 4,000. It's like 16k added on, but then half the number of powders and the 1 radiator helix rather than 3. That's like actually a huge, that's a huge price.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's. My initial impression was kind of like, looks like a nerf, but I mean,
it's like a lower cost. So now apparently it costs about 3,000 per round. I mean, I was kind of okay with M61 costing an enormous amount.
Yeah,
I was all right with it. Like, it's the end game round that you can actually produce.
Right.
Because of what we said. Like, yeah, it's not. I don't know. It's not necessarily the most damaging and most penetrating round in the whole game, but it's like the fact that it butters through all of Class 6. And the damage that it does is very good. And then the cross section of the weapons that it goes into makes it the best round in the game, like holistically. So I don't know. I don't think that nerf on, that buff on price, the price going down, I don't think that was necessarily necessary. But maybe a little bit. I haven't looked at it for a bit. So.
I mean, wasn't it like essentially 10,000 rubles a round to craft? Something like ridiculously high.
I don't know, man. Like I'm kind of okay with that,
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think money's that too problematic, but if it was problematic, this change would open up more accessibility for that people that, would struggle with money. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're getting less, but that just to get some is now the bar is lower. So I guess that's kind of a nice, I mean, I would say it's kind of a rework overall.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's quite different. It's probably the one that's the most different in some ways. So yeah, that's interesting. No more loads of M61. I've got like some from the 80 craft, so I guess it's cheaper now, so you can more freely do it. I don't know. I might move over to it at some point, but not for now. I don't feel like we've actually seen like that much M61 so far. People are still like tied quite heavily to 55A1 and 905 combos, like BP, 762 BP. And now the VSS and Val, which we'll talk to in a bit. I've not been killed by M61 that much. I've been hit by it a few times, but I've not been killed by it. I think it's the inaccessibility of some of the weapons, especially. These days are really biting. It's just like, can't buy the SR25 off the flea, can't buy the RSS off the flea. These guns are like hugely expensive to buy from the start. It's like it's the M1A, basically. It's like you can do with the barters, but quite problematic to get these other guns. I really thought we were going to see lots of people doing M61. Like, I thought I was going to see it much more than I have. Let's put it that way. Maybe it's just what I've seen in my like slice of gameplay, but
I mean, if you like, I think you make a good case because I didn't think about the guns. There's a lot of accessibility problems with the guns. I mean, if you are going to use M61, you're probably going to put it 1 or 2, maybe 3 in the top, maybe 5 if you're really feeling, adventurous in the top of your mag. But yeah, I don't know.
I was going full ball, and I was like two 10-rounders of an M700, all M61. That's the way I was doing it. I lost like 3 of those or something. I was like, oh no. I think people have kind of forgotten. Sorry, what were you can say?
You were saying what rounds were you seeing more common? BP 762 by 39 BP.
But yeah, people love BP still. People are playing a lot of BP.
I mean, I guess the mutant and the RD are still good guns, right?
Still really good. Lots of 5.56. I actually still see lots of like M905 and. Because M905 is actually an amazing craft. I think that's why people are picking that one up.
Yeah.
Really good craft. And you can buy 855A1, so you can stick it under the M995 so easily. It's like, you look at it compared to something like, a gun that I really want to use, the MCX, because I think it's actually probably all right now, but the next best ammo, like the AP ammo is insane, right? It's like, it's like 7.62 BP fired out of an M4, but the next round is like 5.6A1. So it's like, it's hard to stack that, it's hard to stack that and feel good about yourself. Like with the M905, you can, like 5.5A1 sort of stands up on its own. So having 10 and 20 of those, you're like, well, when I get into the M855A1s, it'll still kill people wearing class 5, like no problem. Whereas if you end up in, you run out of your blackouts and you end up in the M62s, you're like, ooh, it's getting a bit hairy now, you know?
Yeah.
It's a bit rough. It's a bit rough. But yeah, I don't know, we'll see.
I think too the big factor is you get what, a 120 from BP from the craft 760 by 39, and you get 200 of M995, like compared to 40 rounds of M60 now. Even 80 was kind of like, you know, you could maybe run like 2 to 4 depending on how you split your ammo. Like, it's tough, man. Because then you got to think about top loading, secure container stuff. I don't know how you make that decision nowadays, but
exactly. So then they've made a load of other trading adjustment changes just to like ammo being sold from vendors. The first set is all the other 9x21s, the P, the PE, and the PS.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think I don't know. I actually did see somebody running PE the other day, and I was like, why why would you run anything other than PS? I don't understand. But
is that a new round? Never seen that before.
Yeah, like what's this 9x29 P?
PE.
9x21 PE. Yeah, it's the flesh round. It's got 80 damage and 15 pen. Then P is 65 damage and 18 pen. So P is actually probably the worst one.
Yeah.
And then PS is 49 damage and 35 pen. The pen just like rips up, right? It's a bit like, so it's quite a lot like SB193 actually. For the P90. So it's okay. They've basically moved all of those rounds to the tier below. So you can get tier level 1 rather than level 2. Yeah, level 2 rather than level 3 for PE, level 3 rather than level 4 for PS. They did a bit of stuff with the restocks. Doesn't really make too much difference, but they like increase the amount that people can get, and then they decrease some of the prices. So like it's not going to be, it doesn't matter that much. The most expensive round in there now is PS, obviously excluding BT because you can't buy that. But like PS is now 371 rubles, which is still, like, it's pretty cheap. If you want to fill an SR2 with PS, then you can, and it's okay. It's not too bad. Then they changed a load of the. It was quite funny when I saw this. I was just like, "Oh boy, here we go!" They changed the MP7 ammo, and I was like, "Oh my god!" They changed Action SX. They did loads of changes to Action SX. Action SX is a round that nobody uses because it's 65 damage and 18 pen. The pen sucks, and the damage on it's not flesh round worthy either, right? Like 65 damage, you can get that from, you get that from like the VSS with like actual pen. It's like it just doesn't make sense. But anyway, they did loads of stuff for that. They like changed the restock of an Action SX to like a global limit for some reason from unlimited. That makes no sense. Then changed the Peacekeeper one from a global limit to no longer having a limit. Oh, why that's the case. I guess it's like, Peacekeeper's the NATO guy, whatever. He's going to have the supply. Maybe it's like almost like a law realism thing. I've no idea. You can only get 400 per reset. Again, I don't know why. But they did increase the prices. So it's now 220 rubles for Mechanic, which is double. And it's $1.29 from Peacekeeper, which is a third more. But I don't think that matters at all. Subsonic, this is probably the most controversial change that they made across all of them, right? The Subsonic, they moved from Mechanic 3 to Mechanic 2.
Mm-hmm.
They changed it from an unlimited supply to a global supply limit of like 500k to 750k. I'm not sure what that's going to do, whether it will sell out or not. I'm not sure. And they made it cheaper from 463 rubles to 299 rubles per shot. And then the final one, FMJ, which is the good one that most people use. It's arguable, actually. People use a mix, but they put a round limit in, a global round limit, and they made it a bit more expensive from $2.13 to $2.81. Like, that Subsonic one, dude, like, the MP7 is already, like, insane. Like, anytime I talk about it in a video, I get, like, 5,000 people commenting being like, Giga, shut up about the MP7. Like, please, it's the only thing left that's, like, broken or whatever. If you keep talking about it, PSG are just going to nerf it. Those changes come out? What have they done? They've buffed it, FMJ, took a tiny nerf, but like Subsonic getting a buff down to Mechanic 2, it's like, and cheaper as well. Like, what? I don't understand.
I've never really liked Subsonic, though, to be honest. But that's just me.
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe no one's buying it. Maybe no one's buying Subsonic. Some people do. Some people tell me, on good authority, that they use Subsonic in their MP7 because they like the way it decreases the recoil. Because it does, in fairness.
Yeah, but the issue I had was like, I mean, it's changed some. It's in the past, the bullet, like the drop off would be kind of annoying at distance. I mean, obviously you don't want to shoot that thing at range. It's not ideal, but I mean, sometimes it just is what it is. And then the pen always like felt not that great. It's like how many times do I got to shoot this guy and he's still running?
Yeah,
that was kind of the issues that I had with it, but.
Yeah, because the low damage plus the pen, which is like in this sort of iffy class 4
Yeah.
level, it's like, oh, because like FMJ up close will just like go straight through class 4, so you know that they're going to die if you just like full spray them.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, subsonic is like, oh, it's just a bit, it's a bit lower and it hurts a bit, especially if you go up against one of the like cheap class 5s. Like if you're going up against a current, then you really want FMJ rather than subsonic, because the ability, what you're banking on there is the ability for the round to do armor damage, and it's very strongly correlated to pen. Like it has a big impact having the lower pen, and even though subsonic's got higher armor damage, like the pen is like more important than the armor damage for getting through that thing, and it'll just yeah, I've killed people with subsonic before, but sometimes it does feel just like a brrr, and they just keep going. They just like stuck it through. It's like, oh my god.
I don't know. Subsonic's really tough because even like I want to use subsonic ammo like on the AKs, the US ammo. You know, I like the idea of reducing my recoil at the expense of something. But the problem I find is like if you don't hit him in the head, then you're kind of screwed. And going for the headshot, up close combat can be a little iffy. With all the aim, punch, and blur. Sometimes you hit him in the arm, or you just end up in the armor. Maybe you messed up, whatever skill issue, get good. But then now you also got to deal with the bullet fall off. So like if you again, you need to go for the head, so you're a little farther away, so you got to aim up a little bit higher. How much higher? If you get too high, hit their helmet. Too like it's a little too hard for me to like work it in and make it feel good. But I don't know. Maybe if it's your jam and you find success with it, more power to you. But I want so bad. You know what probably would make it a buff to it would be and make it more viable is if it actually did what it's supposed to do, I guess, in real life, with like suppressors and sound profiles, but
make it like really silent.
Yeah. Which I don't know. I've seen like mixed things on that, so I don't know if that is in the game or not. I've seen mixed things, but
yeah, same. I think with all the audio changes and stuff, I just don't know what is there and what isn't now. And I've also seen videos where it looks like it's fine, and I've also done other tests where it seems like it's not okay. It's very odd. I don't really know. But I'm amazed that they touched the MP7 and they touched FMJ, and all they did was a little price increase. I'm amazed.
Well,
it stands out like such a sore thumb compared to all the other like SMGs. It really does. You don't have to craft it. It's like it's the best ammo, and you don't have to craft it either. It's like insane.
Yeah, but you can only get 190 per reset, and the restock went from unlimited to 3,000 or 350,000 to 500,000. I mean, I imagine given Last Swipe's popularity, like I swear, as soon as you put out the video about the MP7, FMJ was just always sold out afterwards. So I imagine now, if all stays the same next swipe, it's just going to be a repeat, and even worse, you may not even get to use your personal limit and it'll already be out of stock.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, so I think that's it for the bullets. They did do another change, which was about attachment-based price adjustments, which, I mean, just like skimming through some of them, it's between like, 10 and 50, well, 10 and 100% price increases, it seems. And this specifically is the price that the game knows as the reference price for those particular, pieces of equipment, which determines the trader prices for a start, because the traders have like a discount and a premium to what they sell it to you for as the player, and what they buy it back from if you sell it to them. But also it determines, usually more importantly, the flea market fee, because if this is kind of the issue that we had for a long time, was that a lot of prices in the game are too low, and if it's 1,000 and the actual price is 10,000, it means the flea market fee is quite high, because the flea market fee is some like weird exponential thing. So if you go 10x over the item's base value in the game, the flea fee just like balloons out of control. That's why like you couldn't sell like packets of Amelia croutons to people that are over about 12,000 without the fee being like insane, because the game knew it as being like 14 rubles or something stupid, right? So you tried to sell it at 10 grand, it's just like, oh, your fee fees could be 60k. You're like, what? So you have to kind of be a bit careful there. So I mean, I don't think this matters really that much. The biggest ones is like the SAI the special ones that allow you to do the jailbreak, they've gone from like 30k to 50k ish. Other than that, it's just kind of a base price increase. But what this should do, I mean, I guess for all of the things in there, is like it's pretty much stuff that you'd put on AR-15 type guns, like memory carbine, Magpul RVG handguards for AR-15s, and there's also one for the FAL. I guess the traders should, in theory, I think this is the case anyway. The traders should buy them for a bit more. If you find them in raid and then sell them, rather than having to sell them on the market, and they should pay a bit more for them now. I hate selling parts on the flea because they just there's so many that they just like the volume on each individual part is so low, so they take forever to sell. So that could be good. Maybe it's worth picking up some of these parts now. Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, the only other one, the mobile butt pad stood out to me because it's probably one of the better attachments you can get for the M4 platforms or buffer tube, guns that accept buffer tube. So if you're selling it on the flea, you could get more for it potentially. So that's good. Yeah. Or vendoring even. So yeah, minor change there.
Indeed. So I guess with that, I mean, we end up spending a long time on that because it's interesting.
There's a lot to cover.
Touch on lots of different stuff about like pen and ammos and what to use and what not to use and whatever. But the other massive change, which I guess is going to be the next segment, massive change that they put through, which came out of complete left field actually. I don't think anybody was really expecting this, was a 15% recoil adjustment decrease on every gun in the whole game. Just wholesale. And we may as well bundle it in to this discussion. Well, just to cover off all the bases before we start talking, a subsequent 18% or 19% recoil buff, again, recoil decrease to the VSS and the Val. That comes on top of the 15%. So the VSS and the Val have been buffed twice in rapid succession.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So let's start with the 15%. All right. Let's start with let's one thing at a time.
Yes.
Good? Question mark? I kind of think so, but
I was not sure. Given that all the horizontal recoil stuff got changed recently,
right?
I was not sure. After playing with it, I think it's really good.
Okay, why is that?
I actually think it's really good because of the way that it's been done. Because the issue with the 12-12 change was that it disproportionately hurt weapons with high fire rates, and some other weapons like that. Like it was the specific way that it affected the gunplay that made it problematic. Applying like a 15% reduction to everything, that actually kind of reverses it partly. Like those guns that have a high fire rate have actually disproportionately benefited from this because the vertical recoil, they're more sensitive to that value. But what this has also done is that it has obviously it affects everything. Like everything is better.
Yeah.
But it has less effect. It has the least effect and the least impact on the weapons that are the most modded, and it has the most effect on the weapons that are the least modded. Because it's a percentage change to the base.
Right. So like your MDRs.
So it's not like an attachment with a 15% recoil reduction because of the change. Because I thought this at first, and I was like, oh my god, I was like, some of these builds going to go to like near zero, or like how's this going to work? But then I realized I was like, actually, like the M4, like say the M4 build, which reduces 80% of its recoil from its base. I was like, that hasn't changed. It's still going to reduce 80%, but it's reducing 80% from a slightly lower base now. So rather than getting to, whatever it was, 29 or something, is now getting to 24 or whatever. Because it's only a 15%. Like any build that you can conceivably think of, that recoil that you see in that stat screen, that number got better by 15%. So the low recoil guns only improved by a small quantity, whereas the higher ones are kind of the mid-tier ones. They've improved by quite a bit more. So the old like mid-tier M4s that used to be able to run at about 50 recoil now probably feel okay because they've been improved by, I guess, the equivalent of 7 or 8 recoil, which is it's like having the missing ultra upper and the advanced tube that you used to get. Right, that was 4% and 4% of recoil, which was 8%. And you used to be able to get away with not having those with 50 recoil, but then they added 10 to everything, and now they've basically had 8 taken back off them. So they kind of now feel sort of like they did before. It's not like it was before completely,
Right.
but we've
Right.
also had horizontal recoil changes too. Right? The
Yes.
horizontal recoil changes now, like everything's way tighter. So I don't know. There's lots of different situations that I've seen. Let me just put it at that before like I just ramble on forever. But like there's lots of different situations I've seen where it feels really, really good. There's lots of weapons that now feel like pretty decent. It hasn't seemed to have broken the meta. Like the full auto guns that were amazing, like the RD and stuff, are still good, but they aren't as insanely good. Like actually, even because the meta was like, okay, I'm going to go on a bit more because the meta was low RPM guns.
Mm-hmm.
Those ones are also they don't benefit as much because they're less sensitive to the recoil in the first place, which is why they were meta.
Yeah.
Right? High RPM guns are the ones that got damaged the most, and those are the ones that have been benefited the most. So the low RPM guns, which are the meta guns, were like the MDR and the Scar and the RD and the Mutant and all of these ones with like lower RPM. Those ones have all been buffed a little bit less than like the M4 and the HK and all this kind of stuff. Then I was using the SVD.
Mm-hmm.
The SVD suffers from the whole like you chart it on a graph, right? Recoil and ergo. You have this like weird curve where you can get it to minimum recoil, but then the ergo sucks. If you get it to something sensible, then like the ergo, like, it's this weird half and half. You can have great ergo, but then the recoil's terrible. That like minimum point on the curve where it's like recoil but with an ergo tilt to it, that gun actually feels really good now. I was using it on interchange.
That's nice.
Dude, it feels awesome. It feels really, really good. It's like it feels properly usable. So I was like, man, this is cool. Then the other day, just on a whim, I was clearing out my boxes of stuff because I was just like on a bit of a trying to get rid of all the junk and like actually use the things I've got and like mod my weapons in like Frankenstein ways to get rid of the attachments that I've got rather than selling them. I pulled out the MP5 SD. Gun feels quite good, Church. I killed 2 dudes with the MP5 SD. Like it's and the MP5 SD is going the way that I wanted it to. Lots of people have been talking about 9mm for ages, and we may have talked about this here. I think we did. I can't remember. But lots of people would say, "Oh, 9mm needs a buff, and the bullets need to do more damage, and yada yada." No, I don't think that's what 9mm needs. I really don't actually. We've got enough bullets in the game that do 35 pen and 50 damage. Like we have enough of that. We don't need that.
Yeah.
You can keep the 9mm weapons being like low pen or lower pen with decent damage. That's fine, and it's still got its leg meta thing, so that's okay. But you can keep AP 6.3 and like maybe PvP needs a bit more accessibility, but like AP 6.3 it's been made quite cheap. It's not that much now. It's like mid $3 or something. Yes, the pen is low, but if you make the 9mm weapons the recoil really really low, then you can laser beam people in the head and headshot them, and you'll go through ratniks. Yeah, you'll still struggle a little bit with class 4s, but you need to hit them like actually in the face, and you'll go through class 3 face shields. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if you think you can hit your headshots, you can pick up this really low recoil gun that allows you to do that. But if you just want to thorax meta them, like you're not going to win. And I quite like that because it's different playstyle. It's something different. Like I don't want another 35 recoil gun or 35 pen gun with a 50 damage. It's like we've got billions of them.
Yeah.
AP 6.3 is kind of interesting in that sense. But like it didn't make sense before because it has 800 RPM on the MP5, 850 on the MPX. Like these guns, they just got completely trashed in 1212. But now with this change, they actually feel quite good again. The MP5 SD has like 28 recoil, dude. It's insane. And with the horizontal recoil changes, like I beamed a guy from a decent, like it was the reasonable distance. He was like came over the lip of the hill on shoreline, and it was just pop, 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 and just popped in one in the head over that distance. Bam, got him. I was like, this feels good. Is the MP5 SD back? Like, there's a use case for it now. It's not just stupid. So there's like lots of different situations that I've played in across the last week or so where I feel like the update is actually a huge win. I'm yet to stumble into a situation where I feel like it's broken, it's made something busted, like something's now completely like unusable or something's totally meta. Like it hasn't made anything worse, and it's only made things better as far as I've seen. I haven't used every gun, so I don't know. But from my perspective so far, everything that I've used feels like an improvement. That's all I can say. Feels good.
Okay. Let me walk you through this thought process that I have. So 1212 comes out, and as you said, through people in the community, we found out that they essentially one of the changes they made is they added 30 recoil to the guns, and it's like the base, but it's not visibly shown in the stats. It doesn't reflect. It's sort of like the first step in the order of operations of determining the gun's final recoil. I think is what we think. So then
something along those lines, yeah.
And then you know, well, whatever. And then there's all these changes to the horizontal recoil, or like the angle and vertices, where things are more vertical, you could say, more consistent. But essentially, you know, let's staying on the 12-12 thought here. You take a gun that has 100 base recoil, and you add a flat 30 to it. That's a 30% increase, if my math's correct there. Okay, he's shaking his head, so I know I'm doing a good job. Okay, Kona clap, NA education. And then you take a gun with 30 base recoil, and you add 30 to it. That's a 100% increase. You doubled it. So the proportions are way off, right? But that still remains. And then this update comes out, and now there's a 12% off the base. I'm assuming not the base plus the 12-12 change. I'm assuming that the 12-12 change is like
baked in,
yeah,
because this one's visible. Yeah.
So you take a gun again with 100 recoil, reduce it by 15%. You know, it's a 50% reduction. Like it's not a flat value; it's a percentage. So it's equal. You know, if I'm reducing a gun by that has 30 recoil by 15%. That's like what, 26, maybe 26 recoil, 25 recoil. I don't know,
something like that. Yeah.
Whereas I'm adding 30 to it, like that's a huge shift. So I say all that to say, it's like they're, it's kind of weird because prior to 12-12, I think the complaint / meta was essentially all the guns are laser beams and we're full autoing, right?
Yeah.
And how the recoil function back then, essentially, again, you have sort of like a value that gets reduced, and the way the gun operates is it has some kick, and then the auto compensation comes into play, and then at that point, you're pretty much on your gun's stationary. There's no movement, with the exception of the horizontal bounce / the angle or vertices. There's sort of like a angle or that's kind of baked into the guns, and there's different values. Most of them were 25 degrees, essentially, in a linear shape. So imagine like a V, and your gun would just like kind of teeter up left or right, you know, just slightly in the diagonal up right left kind of thing. Well, now fast forward to the present. Okay, they've done all these changes to the angles, where a lot of them, we're talking like 10 degrees, right? So it's like you took the V and made that gap between the lines much tighter. So it's a much more narrower V. But you got 12-12 where you get the flat 30 increase on the recoil. So the V is essentially extended, right? So it's much more elongated. So you have, if your gun has, this is what makes, I think, some of the full auto guns bad, was that once the gun stabilized, the kick was so sporadic because your recoil was still like technically 60, you know?
Yeah.
And if you had an angle of 25, it's like at a certain point, the full auto felt really inconsistent because it was so bouncy. Whereas like if you have a recoil like 17, like you still have that same angle of bounce, but the V is so tiny, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost like we've gone from laser beam to semi-auto esque to laser beam, but just pull down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel it's a weird thing. It's like, the recoil used to be. You're exactly right, and that's a point that some people miss. And I did a video kind of on this topic, right? And
let me just amend one thing: is that all that is true if you put on maximum recoil mods. Like even in the old days, your stock gun was 80% worse than the fully modded M4, but they were better than 12-12 days. I mean, the stock M4 of 12-12 was just unusable. Sorry, go ahead, Giga.
Yeah, that's true. So the gap between the meta and the shotguns was still bad. But yeah, no, I it's quite complicated, so I didn't even talk about it when I was talking in one of my videos about it. And somebody commented and just talking about this relationship between horizontal and vertical recoil, which is very true. And they were quite right about it, saying that, yeah, as the vertical recoil comes down, if you buff all of the vertical recoils across all the guns, you actually also buff all the horizontal recoils, exactly for the reason you're talking about, because it's based on the movement away from the weapon on this this fixed angle. And if you take the actual recoil number down, that takes both of them down, because that stops it from doing, you have like very specific guns that have very wide horizontal recoils, like the vectors and stuff, but that's like baked into those hidden numbers on purpose. Whereas all the other guns, you don't really want like the vertical recoil coming down and then it's still going out like a pancake. Like, so to avoid that, that's why the system works the way it does, which is quite interesting. But yeah, we've kind of gone from meta guns and full auto guns being very, very low vertical recoil because it was the true recoil, and so they were just laser beams. You could laser beam people through 4 times and stuff with an HK and things. It was absolutely insane. Then we went for 12-12, as you rightly say. There's a big added number on for all of them as a flat thing, which disproportionately hurts weapons that have a higher RPM, because that, rather than being on an AK or an RD or something, it's like I think this precise. I think it was like 21. I think this was like the specific number, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure. But it was like, you have like add, right? The extra recoil each time. Whereas with the HK or something, it's just like right? So the recoil, like, it's the cumulative recoil that destroys it for the high RPM weapons. It's kind of what like
RPM and low recoil guns, which kind of go hand in hand. Like if you have a
exactly, because of the proportion because the M4 could get down to such a low recoil level. It was like balanced around going from, I think the old recoil number used to be 88, I think, and it could get then down to 23 or something. I'm not sure. Maybe it was like 20, 25 or 28. They've moved it around loads of different times, like with what you can and can't add. But it was maybe like 88 down to 28, something like that. But then like now going from, as you say, 118 down to 58 feels awful. It feels super bad, right? Because the M4 could get down so low, and that's what kind of killed it for so long. So yeah, we've kind of gone from like the super laser beam meta into the full auto guns just don't really work unless they're completely modded, and even then, right, it's touch and go, and it only really is the low RPM weapons that work. Moved, and as you say, part of that is to do with the horizontal, because the horizontal flared out because the actual the real recoil of all the guns increased. Then we've tightened it all back again and gone, okay, now that the horizontal recoil is now under control, now we can just pull down LOL. And so some of those guns actually feel like usable again. They're not necessarily amazing, but they're usable. And now we've gone and flat buffed all the recoils back down again. So it's like, okay, these guns are actually starting to feel pretty good. So we're kind of now in like a different model where the actual vertical recoil is still higher than it used to be prior to 12-12, but the horizontal recoil is a lot closer in. And so that makes the guns feel more consistent and kind of like they were before, but without them being complete laser beams. So you still do have to actually control it, and there is still some initial kick. That's kind of where we're at. Well, and whether you agree with that or not, like, we know that there's this rework coming, and most people are concerned most about the first 3 shots just going because it's just a bit weird. That's probably where the rework is going to be most targeted. So who knows? Maybe we'll get a change to the system at some point. But that's where we're at. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I watched your video. Well, before I say that, yeah, I wonder how base guns feel now with this change. Like, is the base M4, is that 50% meaningful enough on a base M4 to make it feel more viable? I don't know. I'd be curious to see stuff like that.
I would say probably not, but because it's still such a big number. Like this, it's almost breakpointy in some ways. There's like a certain subset of weapons. It's like, if you lost sight picture before when you shot, do you still now after the 15? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. Like with the SVD, I feel like it makes a big difference because that was kind of on the cusp of being good, but not quite. But now with this 15%, it now feels really good. The stock M4 probably still feels like trash. It probably still fires on full auto into some crazy, goes up into the air like nuts. It's probably like, rather than being 90 recoil, it's now 70 7 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Which like you still probably don't want to use that, I would think. But I mean, it's gonna in CQB that will be better for sure.
Yeah.
So it's improved that. Definitely improved that.
Yeah, honestly, I'd be curious to see. I mean, it's still. I mean, ultimately, I, I don't know. It's like I think the change is good, but it's ultimately to pacify the current player base. I would say, you know what I mean. Like they said they're going to rework Recoil, and then they come out with this, which I don't think is the Recoil rework. I presume.
It'd be funny if it was.
Well,
take 15%.
If you say so.
Away.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's it's my point is, I would be interested to see new wipe with these current settings to see how it feels. I mean, I really just wish they would just remove the 30 baked in, like what like just get rid of it. But that's just me being, am I asking for too much? Perhaps, but one can dream. So, anyways, I saw your video and VSS Val changes, and because I mean I haven't really played. I don't think I've really played all that much since the Recoil, the big Recoil horizontal changes they did. And I was kind of blown away at the VSS performance because I was like, dude, that thing is literally goes straight up and down. And whereas the Val is like all over the place, I was just like, ew, what is that? Like, why would you ever want to use that? It's way more expensive. Who cares? You can put a freaking butt pad on it. Like, I'm gonna mod it a bit more. Like, dude, I just can't even comprehend why anyone would ever. Maybe I'm missing something. Is there a reason to use the Val over the VSS now?
I personally think no, but it's like I said in the vid, it's much like the RD versus the mutant, right? It's like,
oh yeah, that's true.
You remember when they did the vertical recoil changes?
Mm-hmm.
They did change the VSS and they didn't change the Val. So the VSS has a better horizontal angle than the Val does, but the Val has a stronger PMC auto control stat. So that's the difference, right? The VSS shoots up higher. So the VSS,
right.
the shoot of the pattern is long and thin vertically.
Yes,
the horizontally is like nothing. The Val settles down much quicker, but it's more random left to right, and it's exactly the RD versus the mutant. It's actually closer than the RD versus mutant because the mutant's got a higher fire rate. So there's something there that you go, well, maybe I'll take the extra, the lower time to kill on the mutant rather than the RD, even though it's slightly less controllable horizontally. And I'm not even sure if that's actually true now. I need to go and like triple check what the mutant's horizontal is because I can't actually remember. But either which way, I just don't think it makes sense because they've got the same fire rate. You can get the guns to basically the same vertical recoil because the recoils are so low now with the 15%. The mods do like almost nothing. The mods do nothing to these guns. Like the VSS is 38 when you buy it with no mods.
Really? And again, what was the stat change on the VSS? Because after the 15%, they made they buffed the VSS and Val by what percentage you come up with?
So they got buffed by 15 like everything else.
Right.
And then they got buffed by another 18 or 19%.
Oh my.
It's insane, man. It was like 50 recoil before, now it's 38.
Because that's crazy. 18 on top of the 15. Like the base is lowered when. So it got, like, in a way, it got more than it should.
I mean, you can argue it's got less in some ways because this is actually like this is the system that it should be for the attachments. If, the one that we've been talking about, because now the base is lower, and now you get another 18%. It's not as impactful.
Right. Yeah, if they did it initially.
Yeah, because the order of operations actually doesn't because it's multiplication. It doesn't make any difference which way around you go.
Right.
You can add all of the multiplication operations together and then apply them in one go. So there's no like it's not order sensitive in this particular case.
Right.
But it's so if it's huge. It's like 33% recoil in total between the two changes. It's nuts. But now the Val doesn't get. I don't know. There's just like the mods don't do anything. They just don't do anything now.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like a one thing that's kind of came up in the cycle. This sort of like idea, like, because essentially I would say when it comes between like VSS and Val, um, my personal opinion would be always go with the VSS, right?
I think so.
And some people may feel that I would rather go with the Val because it's more controllable, like it's easier to handle, but you're trading consistency or accuracy. Um, and this is kind of the question: is like, should the because the by all we'll go by the trader standards, I think, anyways. The Val is more expensive than the VSS. I don't know what the player market reflects.
Player market definitely is skewed that way. I don't know why. The Val is like 200k and the VSS is like 120.
Okay, and
It's a
so
big difference.
we could say that the VSS is more of a skill issue gun, whereas the Val is more of your, everyday man's gun, right? But the everyday man's gun is more expensive, more restricted. You know what I mean? It's like, is that how it? And they're doing the same thing, which is even more interesting. They essentially have the same damage stats, if you will.
Yep.
It's just their skill ceiling or consistency is different. So like, should it be the opposite? Is what I'm saying. Like, should the cheaper gun be easier to use but less effective overall, and the more expensive gun should be harder to use but more effective? Or is
you could make an interesting argument that because you're trading one type of handling for another.
Mhm.
But so if you struggle with the initial kick of the weapons, which is controllable by a player who's practiced, if you struggle with that, you probably should still go for the Val.
Mhm.
It's controllable, but if you aren't practiced with it and you
Right.
can't control it, you should go with the Val. You could make a sort of odd argument to say that if the majority of the player base is not a mega chad, and the mega chads are only the people who are super good at like controlling recoil and all the pulling down and all this kind of stuff, and that's 10% of the player base, and the everyman is 90% of the player base. Well, the 90% of the player base should be buying the Val, and so that's why the Val's more expensive, because there's more people buying it. There's more
Right.
demand for the gun that's easier to use.
Right.
Whereas the VSS is, because it's the skill issue gun, it's like, well, there's less people who want to buy it because there's less people who can control it. So there's an argument there. I think, yeah. I think there is an argument there.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because this and the cycle.
I don't think that's why, by the way. I actually don't think that's why, but I think there's an argument.
What, you don't think's why? Oh,
you
don't think
for the price differences? No.
Well, then now I gotta know, why do you think it is different?
So the real reason for the price difference is literally because people think the Val is better, and they haven't watched my video and they haven't tested it, because it looks like it should be historically as well. Yeah, it's like CZ saying, it's history. The Val was better at one point.
Oh, that's true as well.
It looks like it should be
better. There's a bit of an educational
game. There's an educational gap there. That is the reason why I think it's different.
Yeah, that's the reason. Definitely probably a factor. I mean, I would say the other factor is, maybe that if you give a player both guns and they tried it out and they preferred the easier to handle, like, it's kind of a preference thing in some cases.
Yeah,
I mean, you maybe like a seasoned veteran would say subjectively that the VSS is just straight up better in their opinion, but some other player might be like the Val is better in their opinion.
Is there an argument for point fire on the Val being more controllable because you care less about horizontal because you're so close? Like, it doesn't matter. Perhaps. You're going to be able to hit a head because maybe the VSS is going to like leap over their head and then come back. Maybe. I don't think so, but like, maybe.
But either
both
way,
of them laser beams, dude. Both of them laser beams.
Yeah. But I was just kind of blown away at how vertical the VSS was. Like, it and this is kind of what brought upon the discussion of some of the older recoil metas, was that it looked like you could use it similarly to the same effectiveness as the old VSS meta. Because I was playing at the prime of the old VSS meta, and like everybody had a VSS, and it was literally just crouch, full auto, and they're dead. Like, it was just so. And the SP5 was like just as good as SP6. I mean, They were dirt cheap too. Like they scavs would spawn with them. Like things were way different back then. And then they nerfed that into the ground essentially. And it's only till now I would say it's been kind of like definitely now it's definitely boomed back in popularity. But there's been so many changes throughout the history, and that's kind of what brought that idea. Was like now it's almost as if the VSS is back to its old ways, but you just have to. It asks a bit more of you. You got to pull down and aggressively, and then push back up aggressively.
Yeah, exactly. It's like exactly it's gone back to its old ways in the same way as the overall changes we just talked about did.
Mm-hmm.
It's still it's more vertical than it used to be, but the horizontal is tighter, so it's more controllable in a generalistic sense.
Right.
So it is what it is. But yeah, if you control the pattern, they're very, very, very usable. I would do when the news came out, like the Vals went to like 300k at one point. It was nuts. People were just like clearing the flea market out of these things.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. That's insane. I still think it's a bit heavy-handed, honestly, to go with another 18 after the 15 buff. Like they probably could have felt okay. I don't know. Like I feel like they should walk this stuff in rather than just be like make such a massive change to these guns that have notoriously been like. And I think in particular it's a problem for these because they're hard guns to balance. They automatically come suppressed. You hardly need to do anything to them. The ammo is insanely good. It's like they're really like knife edge balance kind of weapons. And that's why I entitled I wasn't even clickbait. I was like, this could just break everything, right? And then everyone's just going to use VSS. The guy I killed earlier had one, and he didn't manage to fire a shot off at me. It's the only reason why I managed to survive. And then I took his. I went into factory and I literally wiped the lobby and cleared because I needed to let some steam off after failing sniping for 2 days. Stepped into factory for the first time and just cleared 5 people out with it, like no problem. It was insane. It was insane. People just in class 5 armor, just straight through. Like I chewed through a 2-man with 1 mag, and then ran through and chewed through a second 2-man with one mag. It was honestly, dude, it's unreal. It's unreal. I quite like factory, and I back myself to be, I'm better at factory than I am at like most of the other maps in the game. Even still, right? Like I don't normally just wander into factory and just kill everybody. Like it's not. I don't know. There's something. I feel like it's too much. I don't know.
So do you feel like there's okay? Let's say I have a VSS, right? And I got what SP6 is probably like a good.
Yeah, that's what
I got SP6. Yeah. What gun and ammo combination do you want to feel like you have equal power level to me? Because calculating the math, let him cook.
Dude, it's hard. It's so hard. It's like within about 10 or 20 meters. Like it depends. Like in a straight up fight, it's so hard to fight against that. Because I was thinking about this before when I was putting the video, and I had like some suggestions at the end, basically being like, play around the fact that they can't shoot you at range very well. Play around the fact that like they're gonna have to reload, and the gun empties itself in like 0.2 of a second, and there's only a 30. And lots of people are kind of weekend warrioring the VSS, so they won't be bothered to buy the 40. There's like 40k for a mag. Like, nah, this gun's okay. A lot of people will be using the 20s, dude. I don't think in CQB. It's like it's so hard to say. Like the only other thing that's probably any better is like maybe an M4 or HK with like 995 in it or something.
Yeah.
Or I can't, like, because the BP guns, they fire a bit too slow.
Right.
Same with the 7.62 like maybe a foul that's got like
M61
or something at point blank, but like the gun's unusable in the rest of the time. It's like it's so strong. It's so strong. Honestly, so, it's like I said in the video. It's like the P90 firing 7.62 BP. It's like, how do you compete with that?
So you're saying that it's hard to find have a similar it's hard to have an equal power level, like not better but just equal, like at best maybe an HK with 995 is what you're saying, possibly maybe a foul.
Like the only other thing I guess that could rival it maybe is like the MCX might rival it at the same with AP, might rival it, but you can freaking buy SP6.
That's the thing,
This is the differentiating factor between this. We're talking about like Workbench 3 craft only, like 12-hour ammo ammo crafts that are going to beat this thing. BP, AP6, BP, 300 Blackout AP, M995, M61, like all of these things are all like huge crafts in the workbench. You can just go and buy, and I do. And lots of people say, SB6 craft is so cheap. And it's just like, yeah, it is cheap. But like, who cares about money, right? I want to be crafting BP and M995 in my workbench. If I can buy SB6 for 3 times the price from Papor, I'm just going to buy it with rubles. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, you want to craft the things that you don't have easily access to, and you want to buy the things that you do have easy access to.
Same argument for BT for the SVD, right? It's like I never craft SMB because I can buy BT. It's basically the same, but I don't have to craft the damn thing. I could be making M995 or BP instead.
Right.
Is the argument. So anyway, on that basis, that's what makes this broken, I think. It's the fact that the ammo is really not restricted at all. And like, dude, SP6 basically is the same pen as BP. It's one less pen and the same damage. So like Kier in chat said mutant with BP, but the mutant has a 650 fire rate.
Right.
The Val and the VSS has a 900 RPM fire rate and fires the same ammo.
Yeah.
You can't and you can't get better than BP without stockpiling SAI AP, which, as I said earlier in the cast, I literally haven't seen a single round of it this point. You can get a better ammo than SP6. There were 2 better ammos than SP6. One of them is now craftable, PAV9. The other one is barterable. You don't even need to go to the workbench 3 to get BP. You can put BP on top of SP. It's like, and then, dude, it's like firing 7.6254 RBT out of a P90.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to go to the workbench. Are you kidding me? There's nothing that rivals that in the whole game.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, there is nothing that rivals that in the whole game.
Yeah, I mean the one caveat is, as you said, it's not ideal for range. I mean, and this is kind of the concerning thing with the VSS in particular is if you master that spray, okay, and if you master the ball, like I could see a scenario where you're on shoreline in the open and you see a guy and he's just like running and you're just like some God gamer no skill issue ever existed. I was born with superior God gamer skills or whatever. You just like aim ahead, you track him and you just pull down full auto and you just beam him from 100 meters and you're just that good. I mean, that's probably like the 0.01% of Tarkov players, but I don't know. It's just I could see how it would be so difficult to find an equal power level in terms of that close range quarter combat, because I really don't think, I mean, the one gun that I did look at, I watched, I think it was like Landmark's video of him shooting some different guns after all the changes, and the HK looked really good, which I was kind of surprised by. Like the M4 looked worse than the HK, which I thought was like confusing to me. But
I didn't watch his video actually. I haven't actually used the HK, so I'm not 100% certain about it. I haven't tried it out yet.
Yeah, I mean, granted, that was just me watching him. So who knows if you actually play with it, it might be completely different. But yeah, I mean, if the HK, the HK is expensive to mod out, and then you got to put M995 in there, and you can't just buy the ammo. So like you're saying, you just buy a VSS. I mean, they got to be like what 100K off the flea, I would imagine.
Yeah, like 120.
maybe brand new. They're like 150,
maybe a bit more. Yeah,
but you slap a OPK 6.7 on there or whatever. And
the mags punchy, it's 40 grand for the 30 rounder, but
yeah, I mean, so what you're talking like 200K plus ammo. That's like what 880 per round. Or sorry, 800 per round. 800 rubles per round.
Depends what you do. If you craft it, it's like 600, 800, something like that. But if you buy it, like SP6 is quite a lot. It's like 1500, I think.
Oh, is it? Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. Let me just.
It's kind of pricey.
It is pricey. Yeah, it's 1200, 1255. 1255.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's okay on the economical side.
Yeah, economics fine. Like, that's the difference between like being able to buy it. Like it could be as expensive as it likes in some ways.
Yeah, but the fact that you can buy it consistently from at least the ammo
every 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean the gun. Maybe they could like make the gun spawn less, and because I don't think you can barter for it, but the barter's like not worth it to my understanding. So I think it's like 8
parts for the VSS.
It's something ridiculous, like 8 long flat screwdrivers and 8 gas mask or air. I don't know. It's something.
Maybe you're thinking of a
ridiculous.
different one. It's one flat screwdriver, one CFDM radio, and a car battery. Apparently, I've never done this
Oh,
barter myself. But
that just sounds annoying to do.
and it costs 160k to do it.
Okay. Well, point is, it does sound it can get a bit pricey, but I don't know if that matters when you can buy the ammo readily available. Whereas to get a somewhat competitive, similar gun, you would have to craft 995, craft BP. So yeah, maybe craft AP for the MP7 if you even dare do that. I don't know. It's my biggest worry with it is it looks a little too laser beamy in the right hands. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, I just think it's too strong in CQB, and yeah, it has some mag problems, but you can get 30s. It's it's okay, but that's really the only way to play around it. Is like to try to get them to run out. Like it's still not amazing if you're like one person against a squad. Like, it's not the ideal gun for that necessarily. Like against a duo that are clumped, it's fine, but if you're trying to fight like multiple people and you have to get forced to reload and stuff, it can be a bit touch and go because of the speed of the weapon. It's like other equivalent weapons, like the P90 has a 50 round mag, an MP7 which is 50 RPM higher has a 40 round mag. So it's not the best, but it's a little bit better. It's like a lot of these other weapons usually have an ability to get something slightly larger than that. So like having 30 max, it's a bit problematic. And then you spend rubles at the speed of light when you fire it at anybody. But yeah, dude, honestly, I think like within the sort of 40 meters, within the 30 to 40 meters range, it very quickly starts to become the best weapon available. I think if you have it set in the right way and you're aiming right and you understand how to pull down on it slightly, and you've got the right ammo mix, right? I don't think there's anything that technically beats it right now because of this change. As I said, I think it's a hard one to balance just because of the way the ammo is and the way that the gun is.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wish. I think would be if you made it more viable for sniping, which obviously you can't. You really don't want to change the muzzle velocity or the bullet velocity because that just kind of contradicts what they're going for. But unfortunately, the meta is just full auto. Like that's kind of how, as Nikita said, it's all about auto compensation. So,
yeah, I don't know. It's it's extremely strong. So like I've used it a bit, and it feels good. I used it on that one full factory raid, and it felt absolutely insane. But like the recoil isn't. It's like I said in the vid, right? The recoil isn't 0, but the recoil isn't 0 on the MP7 either, right? But once you learn how to control it, it's fine. But it doesn't feel like because it doesn't have a great PMC auto control statistic,
right.
So it does move up in the air, but once it stabilizes, then it's like all the others.
But for me, it's more that it's consistent. It's like the FAL, for example, it still has like 22, I think, degrees of horizontal variance. Or a good example is the AUG. Remember the AUG when it first came out?
Yeah, it was really bad. It was like 30 something. I can't remember. It was some massive number. I think it was like 30 angle or something.
I think it was 45. So
was it 45?
I think. So this is if I'm correct, it's a right angle, right? So imagine a V that it's a right angle, 45 degrees. But instead of it being a V, where the point that connects, the lines connect, is just like a V, it's turned to a right angle to the right. So the gun literally had a chance to go perfectly to the right and then perfectly up and anywhere in between. So it was just like the most bizarre gun, which, you could mod it and get low recoil, but it's still like just really bizarre and weird to use and inconsistent. And my point is, if when you could still have that same angle, that you could have a gun that has a ton of recoil, but it goes up in a perfectly 45 degrees to the right, and it has it has like insane recoil, but it's super consistent, which means that you, the player, you can consistently just pull down at that angle, which then kind of like negates all that recoil if you perform the skill check correctly. And that's my concern with the VSS, because dude, the footage was just like, oh my god, I can't believe this looks so good. Like if I was playing, that probably would be the gun I would be using and trying to practice with to get God Gamer skills above to 100%, where I stomp noobs and collect Timmy's dog tags.
Yeah, I think it is, because it's the only weapon now that most of the time you have to be thinking about all this other stuff, right? And that's what they wanted this wipe to be like, with the crafting ammo and all those changes.
Right.
One of the only guns that you can now just like no brain load out and just go.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was expensive sometimes, but you can buy the ammo, you can buy the gun, you can buy the mags, you can just buy all the stuff, you take it off the flea, put it together, and off you go. It's like the only weapon left really that you can just like. MP7's kind of like that in some ways, but like the ammo's like, it's not rated against class 5. Like, yeah, you can get through it eventually, but like this is bonkers. It's bonkers. It's just the full cross section of the gun's amazing. It'll deal with class 5 completely fine. It's got an insane fire rate. The recoil's now really good. You can buy all the ammo. It's freely available in the fleet. Yeah, it's expensive, but it's freely available in the fleet. You do shred the durability on the gun really quickly when you use it. So the thing just like shakes itself apart whenever you fire it. But you know, again, that's really an economic thing. Like, yeah, you might run into some jams, maybe. But if you're buying ones that are close to full or repairing them up to, I mean, even up in the 90s, I feel like, does the chance, I can't actually remember whether the chance increases as it goes lower and lower and lower. I think it does.
I believe it does. I think there's after 50, it starts like drastically increasing.
Yeah.
I recall.
But even then, like if you're up in the 93s or whatever, you buy one off the fleet that's like 45 out of 96, you repair it, it goes to 93 out of 93. You use it a bit, it's going to go down to like mid 80s quite quickly, and then like to low 80s and then into the 70s. I don't know whether you're going to get a jam, honestly. Like you might, but only if you're really going hard on that thing that you're going to get a jam. I feel. I don't know. I've still not had any jams on anything other than playing Scav this wipe. And I've been paying much less attention to repairing and stuff. Like the one that I've got, I'm always tempted to pull it up because I played the whole factory through with it and didn't get a jam. I'll actually find out what the VSS I used earlier was. I'll bring it up in the background. But yeah, it's mad. It's mad.
Yep.
You can see the Tarkov screen opening up. It's like I've been flashbanged. Gosh. Yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to use it every time. Like it doesn't feel. It feels like the one I said before. Nothing feels broken. Now, I was talking about the 15%, right? This additional change, I just don't think it was necessary. I feel like the gun would have felt pretty good with the original 15%. I think the base fit. I can't remember what I said now. I put it in the vid. I went from 50 to 44 or something. I think after the first change, or 45, and then it went from 45 to 38 after the second change. It's like. It would have been pretty good at 45 also, I think.
It's hard to say. I mean,
it's hard to say. It is hard to say.
Without actually testing, but it was, I mean, keep in mind that the VSS and Val have gotten basically nerfs after nerfs after nerfs. Like there's been some buffs here and there. Like very minor things like camera recoil, I think, is one that stands out. But yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. I think it might be okay. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. So let's put it this way. I haven't repaired this gun.
Okay.
I got it off somebody else. Then I used it on factory and killed 5 people. Its max durability when I got it was 83.8, and it is now 77.7. I didn't really even pay attention.
Dude, you're crazy.
Went through factory. I just went through factory and just used this thing.
You're crazy. No shot.
I don't know. I just don't really seem to get many. I don't really seem to get many jams. Like when you're above, when you're in the sort of 70, I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky, but I don't know. If you want to buy 100 VSS right now,
durability.
Yeah, there's actually one for 95. I'm going to pick that up. Other than that, they're 166. I just snagged a bargain, by the way.
Yeah,
So 166k for 101.
I just hate
100
taking chances like that. It just doesn't feel good. It feels awful.
I honestly just didn't. I didn't even realize. I remember seeing it was a bit low, and that's why I was like, oh, maybe let's go and check. I actually didn't realize it was in the 70s. Like that is quite bad. It's quite bad. Yeah, the Val's a bit different, I think, because they're normally 100 because most people find them in a box. Yeah, you can get them on. I think you can get them. Can you get them on Rogues? I feel like maybe because there's a bunch of these that are like low durability on the fleets. They must have gotten them off AI.
VSS or Val's?
The Val.
I'm pretty sure you can get them off Raiders. Like
maybe it's like Raiders or Rogues.
Unless they've changed that.
There.
But
there's some low durability ones, but most of them are 100 out of 100 because I reckon most people are getting that boxes. I would have thought. Anyway. Yep. Good now.
All right. Should we talk about the events?
Yes.
Conclusion of it, I think.
Indeed.
We should talk about the events. Haven't really.
No, for sure. Much. Where we left off, we were in the middle of the bandage event. The bandage event had sped up and was accelerating into the weekend. The bandage event rewards had been leaked and they were bad. I can't remember what they were, but they were bad, and people were questioning whether they were the right rewards or not. It turns out they were not. They were not the right rewards. Whether that was because they got leaked and they were bad and everyone was crying, or because they were just hiding it on purpose from the data miners, we will never know. However, the event finished, and it turned out that no matter what you did, no matter how many you gave in, you got the same reward. The event finished, and you could even hand in one bandage of each type and complete the thing after it was finished and after the rewards became public, which is quite funny. But basically, everybody who did it got 5 surgery levels and 5 health levels, which is, getting skill points is actually pretty nice. A med case. Yeah.
Tons of hours right there.
Indeed. A med case, 4 Grizzlies, 2 Vaselines, 5 Propitols, and 5. Is it 5? I think it was 5 or 6. I can't quite read it. A bunch of Propitols and a bunch of ETGs. So that was kind of cool. You actually did get something of worth for that, which was nice. Then when the bandage event finished, there was a video that was released. I think it was Chronicles of Rizzy Part 2 that was released after that.
Oh, one thing that I just remembered. They also changed the you can't sell med cases on the flea market anymore.
True. And that might be because people were speculating it was because of this event, because the market got completely flooded with med cases, as you might imagine. I actually picked up some Grizzlies. I picked up some Propitols and I picked up some ETGs because they were really, really cheap. Like, Propitols are really expensive this wipe. I was going to say, I don't know why, but probably most players above level 30 or 40 probably use one every single raid.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason. So they were ticking up, they were 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 24, 26. And they were getting up to like 28. And then this hit, and then they were down to 17. So I bought a bunch then. But I think they're back now. They're back up. Like all of the ones. Does
it still remove pain? Because I thought they took that out. Okay.
They put it back on. Yeah, they put it back on. So all of the old stuff that did pain, the adrenaline, the and the morph. The adrenaline, the morphine, and the Propitol all have pain again.
Okay.
And that other one got painkiller on Trimadol, I think, because the SJ6, like the buffed SJ6, it's like got a 3 stamina regen rather than 2. That one got given pain later, like when all the others got it given back, which is kind of weird. So I don't know, but anyway, so Chronicles of Rizzy Part 2 got released after the bandage event finished. That one is basically Rizzy stumbling around and being dragged into a surgery place by some dudes who picked him up off the battlefield, I think. And he gets, it's really quite uneventful. He gets healed by this doctor. The doctor who's referenced in the bandage event quest, because therapist was like, oh, I've got a friend, she's like healing this important patient. So that's the doctor, like she's the one in Chronicles of Rizzy Part 2. She's the one who heals him. She's the blue-haired doctor is what we're calling her now. And she's therapist's contact. And she says, oh, I've got to go and speak to therapist at the end. Is basically what she says. Then there is I can't remember exactly what form this came in, but there's like a link. Oh, I think maybe it's in a letter or something. There's a link to the ARRS terminal again. So Nice Guy and his, band of bandits went and did all of their stuff. I wasn't really keeping up on exactly what they were doing. I just kind of saw the end results. I don't know what they had to do to get there. But they unlocked a series of pictures. One which was you remember when we had the last event with like the bottles all around the world? There was like the people who got kidnapped, and they were saying that their like DNA was important. And there was like one in the US, there was one in France, there was one in Japan.
Oh yeah,
All of that stuff. Those letters were again they were kind of like a part of whatever it is that they uncovered using the ARS terminal this time, as well as a bunch of pictures. And actually, yeah. Sorry, I missed something else. So the other part of Chronicles of Rizzy 2 is there's like a bit about Rashala, like just the gang of they're just like thugs wherever, they're just like a gang of thugs doing stuff and like beating people up. And there's a guy who is being referred to as Tan Man, who we're not really sure who he is. He's getting like beaten up by Rashala in one of the pictures. There's the blue head. So the pictures basically like the blue head doctor with Sanitar. So she's got some shady business going on. Like we basically know that the therapist is like, she's got some dirt. We know this. She's surely Terror Group affiliated. She must be. And some of the tasks she actually used to do like really shady things. She's supposed to be this like good person helping people, and she's just like go and murder all of them. It's like really weird. So anyway, she's got this contact who's like clearly a Terror Group employee because she's in this picture with Sanitar. There's also a picture of her speaking to Ragman. Then Ragman is speaking to the Tan Pants guy, and the Tan Pants guy in another picture is getting mugged by Rashala. So exactly where he fits into this is not really certain. Then right at the end of all this, they uncovered a letter from Mr. Kerman, if you remember from last time, was some mystical figure who was helping out Rizzy doing the hack, right, along with the community. And there's a thing he says like, "You've come so far," blah blah blah. Like it doesn't really mean anything, but it's just like a world is happy and bright isn't realistic to me. It may sound like I have trauma or something, but I believe the world is a wasteland, is not kind to us. These aren't my words. If you want to find your father, and more importantly, show the world what Terror Group really is, be prepared for anything. Do not strand away from friendship, even with former PMCs. They're just as deluded as you are, and also just want to find the truth. And there's a link to a YouTube video. The YouTube video is an unlisted video on the BSG channel, and it's basically security camera footage from labs, or what looks like labs. It sure looks like labs. I'm pretty sure it is labs. And what happens in the video is a group of PMCs, presumably USEC. I couldn't identify them directly, but it must be USEC. Actually, I'm skipping ahead slightly. Let me just pedal back 2 seconds. So
sure.
The blue head doctor comes into Sanitar's office. There's two cameras, one in the hallway and one outside, and one in the office. Blue head doctor comes down the hallway with the document, goes into Sanitar's office with whatever it is that they're looking at. Then it flicks back to the outside. A guy with like a full hazmat suit brings one of the blue barrels into the hallway. And the blue barrels are interesting because I remember looking into this ages ago. There's like this blue ice thing that they're producing in the lab. And actually in chemical part 1 to 4, Skia's talking about like the blue versus the yellow substance. And there's yellow barrels and there's blue barrels. So like, I don't know, there's something there. So anyway, so after he delivers the thing, the group of presumably USEC PMCs come down the corridor with a collection of what look like patients, presumably they're test subjects of some kind. They're walking down the hallway. As they get partway down and outside of Sanitar's office, a team of they all start getting shot, and a team of PMCs, opposing PMCs, rush in and raid the area, and all of the hostage people, well, not hostages, but the subjects are all crouched down on the ground. Sanitar and the blue head doctor make a run for it, and these PMCs, presumably Bear, turn up with Tan Pants Man. And the most interesting thing about all of it, which is what I got from Nice Guys, because I wouldn't have cross-referenced this myself, what I got from Nice Guys' video was the test subjects in the hallway do broadly seem to match up with the letters from each of the people who've been kidnapped and have been sent to Terror Group for further testing, right? So each letter does seem to relate to an individual person within that hallway. The very final person in the grouping looks like the guy who we're pretty certain is Rishi's dad, because he was the one who was at the arena. So he's the same guy there, but he's in this footage as a patient. And Tan Man like specifically goes over and like checks to make sure he's okay. It's kind of intriguing.
So I'm sorry, Reggie's dad is the guy in the arena in the first video that we were following the character. I thought that was Reggie.
The one who disappeared. The one who disappears in the background. Do you remember I said there was a guy who disappears in the crowd?
I do remember that. Yeah.
So there's the guy in the crowd who disappears.
Yeah.
And he is the same as like the final test subject in this early piece of footage. Because Santar's still working at labs, it looks like, at this point. This looks like it's just before the fall or something like that. It's hard to know.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's basically where we've got to. Like those pictures, BSG actually then released onto their official Twitter, so you can go and look and see on the @Tarkov page. There's like a bunch of them there with them talking to IRL Ragman and all this kind of stuff. But where that leaves us, not really sure. We'll probably get a next. Well, we should get another part of the Chronicles, I think, soon.
Yeah.
And we'll see kind of what happens next. But it's kind of interesting. I quite like the lore, but I wish we got a little bit. I hope it's all going to be coherent with the main story and not just like random. But it's kind of cool that these things do seem to be linking together and whatnot. But that's basically it. I hope I haven't missed anything out. I think that's it. It's got hard to track and follow it actually.
Yeah, no, for sure. More things just lead to having more questions, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And we're not going to know most of the answers to these things until we get the single player campaign on 1.0 release, whenever that's going to be. But you know, it solidifies quite strongly a lot more of the links between therapist and terror group, right? There's like an actual contact middle person now who is an associative therapist in some fashion who's directly linked to Sanitar. But we know the therapist doesn't want you to kill Sanitar before, because there's that quest, right? There's Colleagues Part 3 where she says don't kill Sanitar and Jaeger says yes, do kill Sanitar, right? That quest has been around for maybe 2 wipes, 3 wipes, I can't remember.
Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting that it's called freaking Colleagues, dude. Right? Like she's a terror group person. She must be involved in the experiments in some way. But yeah, other than that, it's like kind of hard to know. One random piece of, I guess not like it's not even trivia, but speculation for me.
Okay,
is apparently so all of the people within these films were all devs. So none of them are actual actors. They're all devs. And I don't know whether this is just my rudimentary listening to, you know, Russian speakers or something like that. But the blue-haired doctor, she sounds, and I'm probably going to get, someone will probably tell me, no, that's completely false, that you just can't hear it because, you know, you're an English speaker. She sounds like the spitting image of the lab's the voice announcer to me.
Oh, that's funny. I'd have to listen again and see. Yeah,
not that probably matters necessarily, but like, if they use a lot of the people to do the voices and stuff, I'm like, maybe there is a high chance that she did the original voices for that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what her role is at BSG or anything like that. But I was like, she sounds a lot like the lab's voice announcer to me, at least, which I thought was quite funny. After I thought it, I couldn't unhear it.
Yeah, it's funny. I have to check that out and see, because now I'm curious. I didn't pick up on that.
I mean, I didn't go and like, you know, play the thing and then listen to that. I didn't like compare them next to each other. But it was just as I was watching it, I was just like, I wonder. I was like, this does sound like uncannily similar, which I thought was quite fun.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious because I can hear the lab's voice in my head, but I can't recall her voice in the video. So
yeah,
I'm just curious.
I don't know. It's probably not the case because the lab's voice has been around forever.
It could be, dude. I mean, you know, who knows what, you know, like you said, BSG said they're really proud of what they're doing with this stuff. I think it's pretty cool, and they're all part of the dev team, so it's just not impossible.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's it for that. So, do you have any particular burning topics that you're? I have one more thing. It's relatively quick, but I want to give you the opportunity to voice your feelings. If there's anything that you want to cover, then we can do.
I was just gonna say I'm been pondering more about the Recoil rework and stuff and things like this. You know, I'm thinking about making a video. You know, the cogs are turning. You know, I've probably said this a million times about a million different things, but you know, I feel like it might be more likely to happen. So yeah, we'll see. I'm trying to think more right now, more about thumbnail and title stuff. Like that's a good way to start. But
best way to start.
yeah, because essentially Nikita said, I can't remember where. I think I saw this in a Nice Guy video actually. Because he played the clip from Nikita. Nikita was like, yeah, maybe we'll have the system in summer or a little bit afterwards. Like, damn, summer's like right around the corner. I want to at least, attempt something, just to get it out there.
Then. Yeah.
Yeah, because I kind of regret not back in the Apex Legend days, and then like I think even before like season 1 came out, like it was just the hot thing. I made this. I still have the document. I pulled it up the other day because one of my old buddies came in the chat. We were chatting about Apex, but yeah, I still have like an old document of like some of the changes I was like proposing, and then what ended up happening before I could get the document finished, they came out with a patch, and they did address many of the things. Some of them were like the exact things I had written down, and then some of them were like just a different direction. But I don't know. It's just kind of fun to do something like that.
Cool. And you can't, and you have to preempt it, right? That's the thing. You have to get it in there before the change happens.
Yeah. But also, it's just like a fun. I think these types of like how we were talking about, the skill issue stuff. All these and because Tarkov's so unique, like it doesn't have matchmaking. So when you have a lot of these like skill based stuff in there, it's kind of a pain point for players. It can't. That's like one thing with the cycle is the better guns in this season in particular, with all changes, the better guns they did, the ones that you progress towards, the in-game guns, one of them is called the Core 47, which is essentially the AK-47, and it has like no recoil, and its stats are like okay, but it's really great at killing AI, whereas like the starter guns, they're really bad at killing someone with stronger AI.
Yeah.
But as far as like competing with other players, it's like the time to kill difference between like a low gear player and a high gear player isn't that great. Like they're some of the actual like meta PvP guns are like green tier now, so like just above common. It's weird. But it has matchmaking. But then again, you got this weird progression.
Is it like loot matchmaking as well? It's like people who are good at looting is part of it or something?
The starter map does have gear-based matchmaking. So if you, and this is funny too, if you bring in blue, any blue attachment, you'll be matched with blue players, I think is how it works. I don't know if it's like blue and down, but definitely blue players. And this is what you could do. You can bring a blue rarity key card or key into your container, but have starter gear on, white gear, and then compete against those guys. And basically, and again, your TTK is like not that, like the gaps are like a second maybe, and it's just like the way it's
like KS23 naked PMC, like you lose nothing. Like the starter gear is so cheap, but
it's
you get
so
blue gear
cheap
if you win.
because their ammo with this new season, they changed the ammos up. The going from white to blue, I think it's blue. I think maybe it's not blue. Maybe it's the next one up, which would be purple. White to purple, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers up, is 10 times more expensive. So if my stack of 120 rounds is 300 credits, theirs is 3,000 credits. So it's like, but again, they're not the difference in PvP is not really that big, whereas PvE it's much wider. So it's just there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and
that's quite cool though.
And again, the core, the exotic, the legendary in-game gun has extremely low recoil, like a super easy control. So it's like, should it be like it's just, there's a lot of, that's kind of like we were talking about the VSS, like should it be the most expensive thing and the ammo's super expensive? Should it be super easy? Whereas like the starter guns are like harder to use, but they're not that, the gaps aren't that wide between PvP I don't know. It's an interesting
Yeah.
thing, and it kind of plays out. It makes feel like PvP is not really that rewarding. The more you bring in, you just feel like it's only for PvE, and how much value is that? Debatable. So, anyways,
Interesting.
Yep.
I like hearing about this stuff because it's like a complete, it's like a similar thing, but like another take. That's why I always like these tangentially related games to Tarkov, because it's a different system and you see different problems and
and that's
different player behaviors coming out of a different system. It's fascinating.
Then tying it back to Tarkov, my fear is they're gonna make the Recoil system much more skill based and like heavily focus on the action side and kind of disregard the RPG side. And I just worry that the pain point for not having any matchmaking of any sort might just be a little. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll go that way, but it's not impossible, you know. It might even be like a mixture. Like there's a little bit of skill, kind of like Call of Duty. Call of Duty, like you got to pull down, and you kind of have to like adjust on the fly. It's kind of there's a bit of RNG into it. So it's kind of like a middle ground. But again, there's matchmaking there, so I don't know. That's my worry. Anyways, ran over.
Yeah, it's tough. No, it's tough. It is tough.
What you got?
Yeah, the only thing that I was gonna, and it should be quite quick because I've we've not come to any like strong conclusions yet. But
okay,
I mentioned this just before we started the church, so he sort of knows what's like the topic. But we talked last time about collateral and blunt damage because we talked a lot about PvP, and there's a lot of chatter amongst the creator community in particular about collateral like spillover from black limbs, about blunt damage, like that kind of stuff. There's a lot of chat about it at the moment, and I think that's become exacerbated with certain clips that people are trying to analyze. And I actually started having a look at a couple recently because there was a clip from Jesse where he's wearing a slick and he's on streets and he runs around the corner. Shame I don't have it to like show you, but it doesn't matter too much. He runs around the corner and then a guy opens fire at like basically 90 degrees to his left.
Okay.
And it's like, I can't remember the precise order of operations, but it's like one hit, black arm, like chest takes a blunt hit. I think maybe his stomach gets blacked, and then he dies. And it's like kind of nuts. I don't know. It's just like it's so fast, the TTK, and it was from a shrimp with PS, so not even BT. So it's like, damage is good, but not insane. And I tried to like break it down myself, and it just didn't really seem to make much sense. I was like, I just don't understand how he dies here. Like, there's just not really any way. Like, even the blunt damage on the thorax, so it takes a few shots, but the blunt damage on the thorax is just not enough to kill you if you take, the shots that it says in the end of raid report. So I've been like musing about this, and then there was a clip from Velium as well, and he like died. It was like that was less problematic. Like, it was like, yeah, you probably should have died there, fine. But I just like was trying to understand exactly how it was working. And again, it was like he turned to the side, he got shot in the arm, and then died. And I was like, this is weird. And there was something, I don't know whether I even mentioned it on here, but I started to look into. There was about 3 different people at one point, maybe about a month ago, who were reporting that they were getting shot in the arm, and then their body had like collaterals all over it. They took like 2 shots to the arm or something, but they had like 6 collaterals, like 2 or 3. Like, I think it was like 2 shots versus like 4 collaterals everywhere.
What on the end?
Something along those lines.
Post-raid
on the
screen?
Post-raid, yes,
Yeah.
something weird like that. Something really weird like that. And yeah, some of it's to do with desync, because you can't really you can't match up what happened properly, because the server knows the order that it thinks that you took and died in. You know the client side version, right? So it depends on the order that you would deliver the shots in as your client. So it does make it a bit problematic. But there's a feature of the ballistic system that I was not aware of, or that I maybe was aware of in the past but had forgotten about.
Okay.
And I call it a feature because it's not strictly a bug. It's just a bit weird. So since they changed the blacked limb thing, so you used to be able to have your limbs blacked. This is where the whole canted meta came from, right? You used to be able to have your arms like this. People would shoot you in the arm, it would get blacked. And then when you got shot, you weren't penning the arm, even though it was blacked. The damage was going into the arm and then being distributed. And people were using the arms as basically you had to get through the whole HP pool to kill them rather than just hitting the thorax because it should have gone through the blacked arm. I mean, that was a game balance change that they made to go through. Once it's blacked, it goes through and pens into the chest instead.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. What I hadn't realized about the ramification of this, or had forgotten recently, as I say, if you're up like this,
Right.
and you get shot here in the arm, like
Right.
all of this arm, I guess, is better. If you get shot here in the arm and it's a high enough pen, and it goes through,
Mm-hmm.
it can hit you in the arm again, second time, and deal the damage again. So
Dang.
I had Valiant in my chat, and I watched his clip, and I was
Mhm.
like, I just don't really understand like why there's so much damage coming from the arm here. I went and raided. He was just like, thanks for watching the clips, da da da. And like, I was going to DM him later about like what armor, because I asked him what armor basically. I saw this clip that he put out, and I asked him what armor he was wearing. It was a full Bulgarian. He just got shredded by BT. So I was like, okay. Anyway, I went to raid Airwing's stream. Lo and behold, he's in co-op offline with Velian. So I was like, oh, this is kind of a funny thing. And they were testing precisely that, which is, so full credit for the, reminding me of this thing from Airwing. But he was testing it with Valiant, and you do get basically get double damage if you have enough pen
Now,
and it's enough to go through. It'll double hit the arm.
Now, when you say enough pen, what does that mean? I'm not familiar with that. Okay, so you're telling me that we have built-in armor?
Well, yeah, because like there's a pen threshold for penetrating surfaces, and the PMC is a surface of some kind too.
Oh, I see.
And there's a pen reduction through a surface. I don't know precisely what it is. And if you try I chat saying it's 20. I think it's probably 20 as well, because that's like, there's a lot of thresholds around 20 for like fragmentation, non-fragmentation, that kind of thing. So 20 makes sense, but broadly speaking, a rip round doesn't do it, and a BT round does do it. So it's somewhere in the middle there between the two. Suffice to say, if you get shot in the unarmored arm with BT, and the rest of your arm is behind you, you get hit twice. If you get hit with M80 in the unarmored arm, you basically take 160. No, it's not 160, but it's like, it's the 160 damage multiplied by whatever the non-black like splash over is times 0.7. Like it can be really big. So you can die really, really fast to certain bullets, even with the slick on. And what makes it even worse is because of the way that the spillover works, right? It just proportionally applies a percentage to the full, like versus the full HP of each limb. If you take some blunt damage to your thorax, it just like it kills you so fast. Like it just kills you so quickly in certain situations.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like, this is the thing. It's not strictly a bug, because like if the bullet goes through and shoots you twice, like in real life, that's gonna that's like strictly worse than getting shot once and it getting lodged in, I suppose. But
at the same time,
is this good for the game? I think not.
I mean, not only that, I mean, I would presume there'd be some energy loss going through the first, forearm coming out into the, bicep. Like it would have to lose some kinetic energy, so it should do less. Maybe the system calculates for that in Tarkov. I don't know.
So I don't know whether it's just a pen calc, and because it then hits unarmored again, like there's no damage mitigation. I haven't tested it. I was watching Ewing and testing it with Velian, and it seemed like it was double from point blank from the stuff that they tested. But they did a few random tests. They did a test with RIP just to see, or it was ACP RIP, sorry, 0.45 RIP. Tested that. They tested like a bit of M80, a bit of BT. So it wasn't like super, super conclusive. Like it wasn't tabulated out or anything like that. But it seemed to be double. Like I agree with you. Like if it's gonna go through, right, it should, whatever happens to the pen, if the pen halves or something, like it should halve the damage as well, right? You really would think so, rather than just applying 50 damage again or something, or whatever it is. But I feel that this feature might be the reason for the angst against the blunt and collateral system, because it looks like blunt damage is the problem. Because you take, like, say, 4 blunt damages to the chest through a slick, and then you get shot in the arm and die. And it's like, oh, well, the spillover, the blunt damage must be so high that the spillover killed me.
Yeah.
Where that's like, that is technically and strictly true. But the problem is, the real problem is that the M80 is dealing like 140 damage a shot. That's the real problem.
Yeah.
And I feel that probably happens with things like M61 and stuff. That's probably the reason why M61 is so good, right? Because it can probably go through like 2 arms and into your chest. I don't know how many times you can get hit with 1 bullet. I'm not sure. But if you got the high enough pen, you might be able to pen through multiple limbs and deal full damage all the way through. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm not 100% sure.
Even in the scenario where it hits the arm and then hits the armor, that's still like a good outcome in most, like, yeah, I mean, in general, it'd be a good outcome in most cases. I mean,
like there's certain bullets where you might just get. I did a video on this and I can't actually. I don't remember what my own conclusions were, but you might just get one shot.
It could be, yeah, and that's some very niche scenario. It could be very possible, but like previously, this wasn't possible. So you've effectively buffed rounds that can penetrate armor. Like, you do more damage now in general. And in the case, like, if you have a really, like, M80 is probably a great example. Like, you could do a ridiculous damage output, which I don't really like that. I've never really loved the whole, like, arm damage, leg damage system. Like, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, it's a weird conundrum where it's like, when I use it, it doesn't work, but when they use it, it works. You know what I mean? It's kind of annoying. But it's just like, I almost feel like the system, in a way, I don't know, maybe because part of the problem too, I feel like, is fragmentation isn't implemented. Like, it is implemented, but it isn't, and
that's definitely the problem. And we don't know fully how. Like, I might go and do some more tests on that, because there's lots of stuff that's broken about that. Like, I know CZ's done a lot of stuff on that, and I've spoken to him before, but it's just like, it's really weird. And like the numbers on the wiki, it's amazing actually that nobody's come and like kind of like figured it out at this point. I guess it requires somebody to go and do all the testing and stuff. Like, I think the conclusions from before were that even the percentage chances to fragment were not correct. The multiplier definitely isn't 1.5. It's more. So you could take an, I don't know whether you could take like a shot in the arm and it fragment, and then, or like a shot in the arm, it goes through, it pens, it goes through to the second arm, like the second arm hit, and then fragments in the arm again.
Right.
Like, afterwards, whether you can get 2 sets of fragmentation, I don't think so. I think you can only get 1. But if you shot through first and then it fragments on the second hit, like, you could do an insane amount of damage, especially given that it's now busted and seems to be about 1.8 rather than 1.5. It depends on the bullet, it seems, and it seems to be inconsistent. Like, you can imagine M80 getting shot twice and the second one's a fragmentation at like 1.8 times. Like, that's like half your health pool.
Yeah.
From one shot to the arm.
Yeah, which weird happening. It almost feels like your armor's like, not like your arm. It doesn't feel good to bring out good armor. Like, you know what I mean? Like a slick is a great example, because you're giving away your stomach, and then B, if you're getting hit in the arm twice, and then just theoretical 200 damage is being spilled over to your thorax, it's almost like I should have just brought a class 4 just for to cover a baseline instead of this. I don't know. It's yeah. There's like so many. I wonder if it would feel better if the post raid screen was hyper detailed. Like, okay, bullet shot 1, went through forearm, hit this arm, it fragmented on the second exit of the forearm, and it did this much damage. Like, you know what I mean? And then people could be like, oh, okay, so he got like a 1% lucky shot in this niche scenario. He shot me 5 times in the chest. That brought me down to 30 HP, and then hit me in the arm, and because the round, you know what I mean? I wonder if that would help sort of alleviate the angst against this blunt damage spillover. But
yeah, I think so. You'd need like your player, and you'd be on full HP, and it'd almost be like a replay, and you go like shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, and you can see each shot
step, yeah.
and what it actually did, and it says like, you know, within each shot it would be like A, B, C, you know, like on the application of the damages and stuff like this. Like we had like a weird one on Velian's one, which I was like, I didn't really understand, and it was like when he got shot in the left arm with BT twice, and he had 2 collaterals on his head and 1 collateral on his leg. And I was like, that's funny. And somebody in chat suggested that because the final collateral was what killed him, which I think is true, actually. I think he got shot in the black arm again. Because the final collateral was what killed him, the damage model probably goes into the arm, no health left, remaining damage, multiplied by 0.7. Right, apply spillover, apply to head, apply to thorax. Oh, he's dead. And it never got to the leg because it applies, you know,
order operations.
But it never got there. Yeah, because of the order of operations, you could in theory have that just because of the, you know, it didn't need to calculate anymore because you were already dead. So that was potentially one of them. I was just like, oh my god, it gets into such a crazy zone though. You're like trying to work it out from the end of raid screen. Like you're watching frame by frame the PMC dying.
Yeah.
And you get some idea of what might have happened. And then you're looking at the post-raid screen and you're just like, what? Like there's one of them where Val gets shot in there's actually a different clip where he gets shot in the left arm in customs dorms with M80 and his arm doesn't get blacked. And I don't understand how that happens. Like the arm only has 60 health.
Surely it hit something.
That might be, is that like a interthorax fragment like pinged off?
Or like a window seal or like it had to hit something.
I don't know, man. It must be really it must be like an armor fragment thing, or like I don't think it fragments when it hits armor. I don't know, dude. Yeah, maybe it's through a window or through a metal like foil or something.
I feel like they got too many things going on here that are like
much. You just can't read. It's like trying to read the tea leaves, you know, after the raid's finished. It's freaking crazy. But anyways, I mean, there's not really anything conclusive other than I forgot that you can take double damage to your arms, and you absolutely can. And it was funny, Airwing actually, him specifically commented on saying that doing the canted thing now is actually like a bad thing. Like you exponentially increase the amount of like double hits you take by doing the canted thing because you can get shot twice way more easily, which is quite funny.
New meta, blind fire everywhere, overhead.
Yeah.
Protect the arms.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, does that mean that blunt damage needs to be changed? Does that mean that they should change arm damage spillover? Or spillover in general? Do they need to change the bullet double pinning? Should it only revert back to the old days? Or you can like go through once?
Yeah, I mean, what's my takeaway? I think blunt damage in and of itself as a mechanic, I think it's okay. I think collateral damage as a mechanic, as it stands, is okay. I think removing like double penning completely, it would stop people being able to shoot through multiple people and get like collateral kills, which would be a shame. So I feel that a good middle ground would be something along the lines of once a bullet has hit a limb, it can't be hit again.
Could be as simple.
Even if it hits the arm a second time, it doesn't do anything.
Right.
Maybe something along those lines. It's not realistic, but it stops this weirdness from happening, or at least the damage gets decreased fairly significantly if it goes through a limb. It would need some huge damage like nerf because it seems like that's not really being applied. So I think maybe that's the problem. Basically, the armor damage is just way too much. It's way too much and it's way too inconsistent. And I'm almost getting to the point now where I just feel that I just almost feel like fragmentation should just be taken out of the game. I don't know. It's just too random. It's like, and especially now that it's completely. It was okay when it was 1.5 times. We knew what the percentages were, but like now it just seems like really, really weird.
I mean, I like.
No one knows what it is. No one knows how it works. It's just like crazy. And then it's like, and then like, how are we supposed to give? You know, we say like, oh well, how should the system be changed? It's just like,
right.
I don't know.
How are we supposed to know if it's bugged? Right. It's like you need some type of feedback.
Yeah, either the thing needs to become more detailed or take some of the mechanics out so it's not so random.
Yeah.
Like we already have like pen randomness and all sorts of other stuff. You know, Tarkov's random enough. Doesn't need fragmentation. Like,
I mean, I kind of like the idea. Like, you get like a critical roll. Like, that's kind of. I kind of wish that's how they did the leg meta ammo. Is like it's essentially 68 damage, but it has like a really high chance to crit. But it can't, like, even if you crit on armor, it's not going to do anything because it has like one pin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But then that makes it less inconsistent. But that's kind of what I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I honestly think it'd be interesting to see if you could one tap someone in the. Let's say they're wearing a class 4, and you grab a Mosin with BT. Can you shoot them in the arm and then in the like hit them in the arm and the chest? Because it should.
You'd be able to do that.
You should be able to one tap them, right? In theory, arm, thorax. Because it will pin the class 4, but it won't. Like, normally, if you shoot them in the chest, right, it will pin the class 4, and it should deal like, I don't know, around 80. No, it can't be that high. 77 damage, maybe something like that. 76. But can you hit him in the arm, which would be enough to spill over to do a little bit of damage? Like, I wonder if you could set that up.
Where's my file? I need to open this because I literally did a video about this and I can't remember what I said. I'm like the worst person. Oh, what did I say exactly about this? It's about with fragmentation, you definitely can.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I feel like I vaguely remember this. Was it about them? It had to be about SMB or something.
I think it's only PS12B. And only against class 4.
Interesting. But can't you normally one shot with PS12B on class 4 in the chest?
Actually, that's true.
Looking for an extreme niche here.
That's true, yeah, because you already. Yeah.
It's got to be like M80 or
so like
762 RBT. You need like around 40 pin, but you also need like around 80 damage, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. The only other ones that do it are potentially things like, but again, they one tap too. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything that's like enough of the threshold because they took all of the stuff down below 85. So it's like shooting the arm. It doesn't do enough. The spillover is not enough. Like you need quite a lot of damage. I remember actually now it's coming back to me now. I made this video quite a while ago. It's coming back to me now because I actually made a little formula for it, just like to calculate it. And it was actually you need the damage to be quite high because you have to. Like 60 is the arm threshold, right? So it's the percentage of the thorax without the arm and whatever's applied above 60. So if you go up to 100, then it makes sense. But down at about 80, you've only got 20 splash. That's the problem. And like, you've got 440 total normally on your health. And you take away 60 of that because the arm's gone away. So it's 380. So 85 divided by 380. It's 22.4% or whatever. So if you've only got 20 damage spilling over, then it's only 4 damage on the thorax. So it's not like in most cases it's just not enough.
Yeah. Okay.
In most cases it's just not enough. Is the issue. Like I don't know. There's not really any clear case where it works. The only case where I could find that it actually worked by looking back at this on something that doesn't automatically kill was Lapua 338 FMJ against a class 5 at 100 meters. That's the one place where it works because the damage mitigation is enough that the class 5 will absorb enough of it. But if you hit them in the arm first, then they will die. If it goes.
Interesting.
But that was actually hang on a second. That was with two separate shots though. Now I'm remembering. That was with two separate shots. But that's kind of what we're talking about. It's sort of the same thing. It's analogous. Yeah. It's very similar.
It's similar, yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's very niche.
Yeah. Overall, though, I just personally like the idea of armor, feeling good about bringing in expensive armor. I mean, there's obviously a balance there. And maybe with the new armor rework and hit zones and the different plates you can put in, maybe that will improve. Although I suspect not. It probably will get worse. But as far as you dying more often to damage in general, but I don't know. Maybe it's fine.
I just want to get to the bottom of what's happening, but I don't have the answer now, so we shall see. Maybe next week I'll have a fantastic update and I'll understand everything.
I've cracked the code, the Tarkov matrix code.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Giga?
No, I think that's it for me. I don't know whether I can take any more sniping on Tarkov this coming week. I'm not sure, but I might use the MP5 SD a bit more and see how it fares. Because the little old headshot laser beamer was treating me quite well so far. So we'll see. Yeah, that's it for me, I think.
All right. And with that, we're signing off. Everyone take care and we'll see you next week.
Catch you later.